to the continuation of our June 14th board meeting. Oh, January. December.
You just want to go
It's
back
not
in
that
time.
I'm trying to move through the school year quickly, but
Yeah.
okay, the December 14th meeting. We met earlier today, and Dr. Pulver will review the workshops, but we would like to begin this meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Meg?
Be my honor. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Los Alamitos USD will be implementing California Department of Public Health guidance, which no longer requires social distancing in public settings. CDPH requires that unvaccinated individuals wear face coverings when indoors. Therefore, we request that unvaccinated individuals wear the face coverings. By physically attending the meeting without wearing a face covering, you are attesting that you meet the requirements of CDPH's guidance for the use of face coverings. Thank you. We are now going to hear about our workshops from Dr. Pulver.
Thank you, Madam President. During our workshops, it was delightful to have a return of our student reports and our school reports. We made a switch and brought them through our workshop, and so far the feedback has been great because for our staff, for our families, and our principal, a little bit earlier time when our kids get home. So we were highlighting the amazing work going on at Rossmore Elementary School. We had 2 students who were also part of the presentation. The Royal Rossmore Chorus also sang their patriotic song for all of us. And then Rossmore recognized their hero of the heart, who many people know, who's very deserving, Miss Tanya Doby. And then our second workshop, we just had a brief discussion that the board will take approval of later at the end of the night. This is your organizational meeting where you assign your committees, et cetera. Due to the Brown Act, at different committees, you can't have more than 2 board members. And so we assign who those board members are and the alternate. So we'll take a look at that final discussion at the end of the meeting. And that concluded our workshop.
Thank you so much. And it was absolutely incredibly joyful to walk in here this afternoon and see the room full of parents with the front rows filled with the kids who were in the choir. And Tanya Doby is a hero. She is a person who gives heart and soul to the district, and I can't imagine anyone more suited for Hero of the Heart. So it was a great afternoon meeting. We are now going to go to our organizational meeting. The Board of Education members will elect a president and a vice president to preside over all board meetings conducted in 2022. Do I have a discussion or motion?
I would like to nominate Diana Hill as president.
I second.
Any discussion? Besides, we think you're wonderful. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. The motion carries 5-0.
I'm abstaining because I'm not going to vote for myself.
Okay.
Oh.
The motion carries 4-0. Yay. Thank you. Thank you. Here, you take the gavel. Okay, and now we are going to elect a new vice president clerk. Do I hear a
I
nomination?
nominate Chris Forehand.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no.
Oh, you can't.
The motion, you can vote for
can.
yourself.
Woohoo!
Oh, sorry, Diana, you were supposed to do that.
You're right. You finished the...
You finished the, yeah,
Okay, I'm sorry.
yes.
Okay, that's right.
Yes.
No, you're fine, you're good.
You should have kept this.
Yeah, you got rid of the gavel.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. The motion carries 5-0, and I am so excited at the great leadership we will have in 2022.
Thank you very much,
So
Mrs.
I
Davidson.
now pass the meeting over to Diana, to Mrs. Hill.
Thank you very much. I just have to say that I'm very honored that my board members would afford me this opportunity to be president of the board. I promise that my focus is on serving all children of this district. And even though that doesn't mean that we all always agree or that I may always agree with what parents need and want for their children. But that's really what our job is to do that and to serve this board and be diverse and always focused on the main thing, which is our students, our staff that support our students. And I think that this board and the executive cabinet and our leadership do that and constantly do that and put students always at the forefront of what we're doing. And so I know that as a board, we will continue to do that and make the main thing, because that's what we do. So thank you very much, and I'm very honored to take on that role. The next thing that we are going to discuss is the designation of times and locations of our regular board meetings, and you should have a sheet that has those dates on it. And traditionally at this point in time, it's really important for us to adopt this so that the public knows when we're meeting, can anticipate those things and make sure they're on their calendar. We also try to really be cognizant of any holidays or anything that might impact people from in the community as well. So we have the dates in front of us, and I would ask that we take a look at them. If there's any of them that we know we have conflicts for. And the one thing we do know as a board is that things come up. You can't always know what's going to come up. But this board has always been really strong at making sure that this is their commitment. Even I know that Mr. Fayette has flown out at midnight after board meetings to make sure that he is keeping up with his responsibilities. So are there any questions, concerns, any dates that we are looking at that we would want to adjust? Yes.
Madam President, I just would like to, we did bring these dates forward in the, probably late summer, early September, because it seems a little bit silly to just bring them forward when our very next meeting would be in a few weeks. The one change from when that, but we always formally adopt it now. The one change that we did is we did change our November meeting to November 15th. The Register of Voters, and this is what I love about this board, wants to be able to use the boardroom for elections. This is an election year. And so we wanted to make sure they had adequate time, and we weren't going to have a board meeting on election night. And so we moved the date to the 15th. So that's probably the change, I believe, from when you had previous taken a look at the preliminary adoption of this several months ago.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pulver. Any other comments, questions? Do I have a motion?
I second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. On to our next item, and our next item would be reports and easy for me to say, recognitions, and I will start with the board president report. And this report is going to talk about some accomplishments that have been made through the district and for the district over the past calendar year. As many of you may know, we're a school district, so our year typically is the end of June to then the following beginning of July. But it is a calendar year. The calendar year is when we do our nominations and we change our board. And so I thought at this time it would be really nice to be able to look at some of the things that have been done in the past year, calendar year. And also I just really want to thank Mrs. Davidson for her leadership, because these things have been done under her leadership. And there is one thing I know about this woman, is that she has a huge heart, and that she puts it into everything she does and the way that she performed her duties during this time. And she also always says it's we. She never says I. It's always we. But we want to thank you. So we're going to look at some great news that has been going around in this district for the last year, and we can all use a little bit of good news, I think. So one of the things that I know that we're very proud of and that we really stand on is that we were the first district in Orange County to reopen schools for full-day traditional instruction. We also know that there has been a lot of support that has been needed for our students, and we've added a great deal of mental health counseling and supports and services because we know that if our students aren't prepared to learn, they can't learn. And so we talk a lot about learning loss and what's happening, but until they are ready to be able to be in the classroom and not be anxious or worried or whatever the anxiety they may be going through, they can't learn. And so we really want to address that because we really are about the whole child. We successfully opened the first well spaces in the county, and that was a collaboration between LAIF and the Orange County Department of Ed and Chalk. And it was amazing to see all of these organizations come together and for once again, for one thing, for the well-being of our students. And we are working on with, I do believe, LAIF support as well, a well space for the high school. And if you get a chance, and if you have been on campus or you're on campus for maybe, I'm sure that maybe open house or something, that these well spaces will be open and you'll be able to get a good feel for it. But it's a very relaxing place where students can come. There's also less stigma of being able to come in and talk to somebody in there if they need that. And then the introduction of our ethnic studies course. Every board member has gone in and observed that course and observed our teacher, who is just doing an extraordinary job. And the students are so engaged. And at this point in time, that is an elective. So we held in-person back-to-school nights, and that may not sound like a lot, but in today's environment, it was a great deal. And it's really important that parents have the opportunity to know what their students' school year is going to look like and get that information directly from their teacher and be able to connect. I don't know, many of you have younger children, so you haven't been through this experience, but as my children have grown and gone away or went away to college, it was always important to me to see where they lived and to see who they were face to face, because it allowed me to be able to connect with them when I was talking to them. And so for a parent to be in a student's classroom and to be able to really know what they're talking about, what wall they're talking about, those things are really important, I think. And we've gotten back to doing parent education nights. We also have had some tremendous live performances, and to be able to see our students back up on stage and performing and singing just will really bring a joy to anybody's heart. Live extracurricular activities. And then also one of the things that has been a goal of this board for a very long time was to make sure that our parents didn't feel a burden or a responsibility to have to pay for outside tutoring for their students. And we've done a lot of things over the past decade and a half, but we just keep pushing that envelope. And now we have this wonderful program called Paper, where students can get tutoring at any hour of the day, which is a very scary thought, if you ask me. But, you know, students, Will's told us he's studying very late into the night because he's so active sometimes. So it's a great opportunity for our students and supporting our students and our parents. And then we have received, not we, our wonderful schools have received some awards. And so McCullough Middle School was named a California Distinguished School. I don't believe it's the first time, correct, Dr. Pulver? Not for any of us. So they received it again. There's a certain rotation in which they can apply for these things. And then I think really something very special this year was Los Alamitos and Lee Elementary School both won National Blue Ribbons. And Dr. Pulver had the opportunity to spend time with the two principals and a couple of our teachers at an award dinner. And I believe you said we were the only one in California that had 2 schools. Is that correct?
Only district in California that had 2 schools, one in each category, exemplary high performing and closing the achievement gap.
Thank you very much. And then obviously we have made a lot of site changes, new playground equipment, bathrooms, and a number of other things. And as you will see, there is extraordinary progress being made on our 3-story building at the high school. And so we're excited about that as well. And then we're also starting the process of designing a new gymnasium at the high school as well. So Mrs. Davidson, once again, just amazing things. Leadership does matter. And so I appreciate that. And would you like to say a few words?
So I'm taking off, I'm fully vaccinated, boosted, and everything. So, and I promise that it will be less than 15 minutes, much less than 15 minutes. But as a first-time board president, I'm deeply indebted to the people who sit in this dais for their mentorship, guidance, support, and patience. Andrew, you are a hero to me. You approach every day with a heart to serve our children, our staff and communities, and everyone else that touches your life. You guide by dedicated commitment to listening, learning, collaborating, and finding the best path forward. Andrea, you have masterfully addressed constant changes to on and off campus instruction and much more. Your leadership has been nothing short of brilliant as you listened, researched, collaborated, and never stopped innovating to come up with amazing solutions. Elvia, the way you've handled an ever-changing, ever-evolving budget through the pandemic is absolutely mind-boggling to me. Funding never stayed stationary, but you worked with such intelligence and heart to deal with every dollar for the benefit of our children. Joe, I've been in awe as you navigated all the complexities that have emerged due to the pandemic. Your job has been hard because, like so many of the issues we face today, solutions cannot make everyone happy. Yet you've met each situation with a courageous heart. To our directors and their teams, you all deserve superhero capes, and I'm honored to work with every one of you. Your dedication is a reflection of your strong character and commitment to our children. This pandemic and other significant issues in education have added gigantic dimensions to what all of you do and how you keep our campuses not only safe, but also excellent places for learning. Each of you has amazed me with your brilliance, energy, and determination. To my fellow board members, thank you for your wisdom, faithfulness in this work, and determination to always do what is best for our children and community. As a new president, I cannot imagine how I would have gotten through any meeting without the guidance and mentorship of 2 incredible leaders. Diana, you always have such a clear picture and focus on every issue. Your professionalism mixed with a truly tender heart makes you the kind of leader that causes important outcomes that truly make a difference. Meg, you amaze me with all you do. Meg, you amaze me with all that you do not do only for our children, but you do for the education of children throughout our state. You continue to educate and inform all of us about the inner workings of education throughout California, and that's been so valuable. Throughout this year, you have been such a kind and generous mentor to me. Thank you for all the conversations we've had that helped me understand my role in this seat. I am truly grateful to have sat between 2 women who give their hearts to all of us. Chris and Scott, is it hard to believe it's only been a year? Yeah, only one. Your voices have brought new and valued perspectives to the board. Chris, your background in education brings knowledge and valued perspectives to the table that is needed and respected. Your involvement in our schools as you go from campus to campus to read to our kids as Papa also gives you welcomed insights to share. I've truly valued how your kindness and wisdom have strengthened and informed me. Scott, as the only parent on the board, your points of view are much needed. You share not only concern for only your children, but with a sincere concern for every child when you address an issue. You are a gentleman with true strength, compassion, and integrity. To sit here with all of you is an honor I treasure. Tina, you are the angel that keeps everything moving on the right track, girl. For this past year, you have been invaluable to me in so many ways as a source of knowledge, my safety net, and true friend. I cannot begin to list all the times you've saved me, Tina. You are the golden thread for everyone, and I'm so grateful. Will, I truly am appreciative to you for bringing us joy through your fabulous student rep presentations. Each one reminds us that our students have a tremendous capacity to light the world and to create a future full of hope. Thank you, Will. Thank you to our tech heroes back in the back there who've navigated these ever-changing meetings. Your problem solving and hard work have made it possible for us to bring these meetings to homes throughout our district. To site administrators, teachers, and staff, I cannot begin to express my gratitude for all the great work you are doing. I know that it comes at a great cost in such trying times. In the midst of a pandemic, you have demonstrated such courage, determination, and heart. Everywhere I go, on every campus, I witness the highest levels of professionalism wrapped in selfless love. It is my honor to serve every one of you. To our families and communities, being in this position has caused me to wrestle deeply with issues that personally affect you. There are no magic wands or perfect solutions. Your dedication to what you believe is best for your families is evident in every presentation, email, phone call, meeting, and text. I hope we are coming close to returning to some version of normalcy. But this is a community that hangs tough. And I know that because of your commitment and dedication to keeping our district the best that it can be, together we will make that happen. To my husband, Stan, family and friends, there are no words. I know that you are my source of strength. I cannot begin to express my gratitude for all that you do to support me and keep me going. I love you. Diana, you're going to be an amazing president, like you've been an amazing president before. I look forward to all that will be accomplished under your leadership. It is my honor to pass the gavel to you, and may God bless our district and community in 2022.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Davidson. Beautifully done and said, and you did trump me because I wanted to thank my husband, but he wasn't in the room, so now he's going to think it was a second thought, but it's not. And I do want to say that my husband is an amazing community member. He loves this community with his whole heart. He loves me. He supports me. He is honest with me. I don't always necessarily like what comes out of his mouth, but I always appreciate it and appreciate the perspective. Thank you, baby. And then I had this quote was said in church about, 5 or 6 weeks ago. And I just thought it so resonated with us in the district and also just where so many of us are in the world. And it says, the present we are in doesn't pause the mission that we are on. And Cabinet, it has never paused the mission you are on. And I really appreciate it, Dr. Pulver, that you have always kept your eye on the prize. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we're going to move over to our joyful part of our meeting, our gentleman with the candy cane jacket.
Hello, everybody. I know what everyone's thinking, right? Kohl's. Thank you. $17. It was the best purchase of my life, right? Thank you. It's actually my mom right there. She looked ahead. I didn't even know. So also, thank you for your kind words. I cried a lot this week for finals, but those were the first happy tears. So thank you. Thank you for that. Had to change the report around. Had to change some names. So good evening, President Hill, right? Esteemed board members, Dr. Pulver, Executive Cabinet, and community members watching in person or online. It's been such a long time since we've all been here, and it's great to be back. I have a longer report for tonight, so sit back, relax, and please laugh at the terrible jokes about to follow as we dive into my 7th student board report. With first semester coming to an end, 3/4 of Los Al is concerned about finals and getting those 88.5% grades up to an 89.5. I'm actually in that same boat, but what the last 1/4 has been worrying about has come down to its final weeks, as many seniors are starting to hear back from colleges just this week. December 15th is the date many hear back from their binding early decision schools and a few non-binding early action schools as well. A few notable ones out there are Charlotte Nelligan, who is awaiting to hear from Vanderbilt this week, Ava Mendoza, who's awaiting to hear from Yale, and Will Brandenburger will be hearing from Miami University this Wednesday. Actually, revision of that, I actually heard that I got in 10 minutes ago. Thank you. Thank you, guys. I was standing outside and just got an email with you did it, so that was pretty amazing. What has been 4 years in the making comes down to 24 hours from now, where they either hear a yes or a no from a school of their dreams. I know many people who are excited, but most are just happy they no longer have to write the infamous Why Us college essay. At the last board meeting, we were just on the cusp of our Thanksgiving holiday. But before that very nice week-long break, LEHS's very own administration team headed what was called our Thanks Living Festival. This 53-minute lunch had games, prizes, and a student favorite churro cart. The whole admin team went all out, especially on those churros. And take my word for it, I've had a lot of Disneyland churros in the past month, and these met and surpassed the standards. During this extended break, teachers were also treated to a special catered Mediterranean lunch. After an amazing week full of thankfulness, ASB is full steam ahead for what is our next large-scale event, Winter Formal. This year's theme will be Night at the Museum, taking place at the Los Angeles Natural History Museum. It's sure to be a night filled with dancing and memories to last a lifetime. We actually got word today that Owen Wilson and Teddy Roosevelt from the hit movie will be in attendance as well. Unfortunately, their appearance is subject to availability, but please email Mr. Quartermarsh as many times as you can. He loves a full inbox. Winter Formal would not be possible without some amazing ASB hard work, but a special shout out goes to our sophomore class presidents, Taylor Herron and Sarah Hall, who have taken the lead on the project and are doing an amazing job. There's still time to pick out dresses and suits, but be quick to buy your tickets because the prices will go up starting Monday. And now that fall has passed and winter's upon us, it's time to switch from the field to the gym. Basketball has taken the court, and with their season just beginning, they're off to a great start. The boys played Cerritos, winning by 39 points, and then in a blowout game, won by 64 points against Wilson. And just this past week, they played Santa Barbara, winning by 29 points. And girls soccer has taken over the field, having strong hopes for the season, says Captain Summer Allen. They had their first game versus Milliken last week, and on Friday, they played Cypress High School. 3 days ago, they played in the Best of the West tournament, where they played against Mater Dei and Santiago High School. And now that boys water polo is done with their very successful season, it's time for the Lady Griffins to swim into their season. They started off strong playing Foothill with a great win, 11-6. They're gearing up for what is going to be a great season, having practices every day, which is especially hard in the cold weather we have been having. Their next game is December 22nd against Martin Luther King High School and is located at the Los Al Pool. Don't miss it. And in spite of the recent news from the University of Oklahoma, there may be a few new USC fans in the audience and around Los Al. With Lincoln Riley's move to now be the head coach of USC, players are starting to shift as well. Both OU commits and fellow Griffins, Malachi Nelson and Makai Lemon, have now issued verbal commitments to the University of Southern California. But don't worry, folks, we still have them for one more year, but it's super exciting to see these star players make a life-changing decision. On December 4th, the Los Al Dance Program had its final performance for this year. Their show, Desktop Drama, was a huge hit with high-flying aerial stunts and fantastic routines from advanced dance. Some highlights included the change routine, where the show's artificial high school cliques fought and eventually discovered they were all equal. The show was particularly hard as the dialogue and music was pre-recorded, so all the dancers had to lip sync and dance at the same time. The show had four performances, and a couple of them sold out. It was a great show and a second to last one for the seniors in the program. And while the dancers had to lip sync at their performance, this past week, a choir had to sing in real time for their holiday performance. This Broadway-level show was one that knocked the socks off all the guests, especially when they sang the song Hot Chocolate from the Polar Express. Other songs included Oh Holy Night and Silver Bells, which were sung by various choirs. And now on to more of our hands-on arts. For this past week, on December 9th and 10th, the Winter Art Show took place in the Griffin Gallery. Students in physical art classes like photography, 3D design, and ceramics were able to showcase their first semester's worth of work to not only the school, but also their families. And lastly, this week on Wednesday at 7 p.m., the Los Alamitos Concert Band and Orchestra will be performing in their own holiday concert. Tickets are $5 at the door, but students with an ID are free. And before we get on to teacher time, I wanted to showcase something amazing that ASB has had an opportunity to take part in. 2 weeks ago, our normal Wednesday fourth period class took a happy turn when all ASB students were greeted at their desk with an envelope. The class was simply then asked a question: what would you do if you could change someone's life? You would do it, of course. And with the help from an anonymous alumni network, each ASB student was given $300. On one condition, of course: they must give the money to someone during the holiday season to try and spread some cheer for what's already been a hard year. Students are tasked with finding a way to give the money away and do what they see best. Students like Sarah Hall, shown there, have already given their money away, but some are still pondering the best way to make someone's holiday season. I had the opportunity to give my money away, and I hope I don't tear up while retelling the story, but I was working at the Snowy Pines Christmas tree lot when I saw a family at the register with 2 trees. The family had a daughter who picked out a small tree. She wanted for her room on top of the larger tree that we had as well. I'm so sorry, this is gonna come really bad across. Thank you. She was so excited to decorate a tree that she wanted, but her dad told her that due to the finances this year, they cannot afford the tree. The girl instantly broke down crying in tears. She cried in the corner of the lot. I approached them on the way out and explained to them the opportunity that ASB had. Oh, sorry, my voice is cracking a lot. With tears in my eyes, just like now, I asked them if I could have the honor of buying the little girl the tree she wanted. She grabbed into my jacket, and we walked to the register and purchased the tree. I walked her back to their car, and I never saw him again. The dad simply gave me a handshake and told me he's super appreciative, and he thinks it's really cool I'm comfortable crying in front of strangers. just like now, right now. Sorry about that, but I'll share more stories when other students have given their money away, but the simple act of kindness has really moved me and others in ASB. It's a good reminder. Yeah, thank you. I swear I rehearsed this and I didn't cry when I was telling my parents, and now we're here. But it's a good reminder that any act of kindness is rewarding and can change someone's life. All right, teacher time. Let's do this. All right. Sorry for that little tangent, but we're back to our regularly scheduled programming with Prof. Strogovitz for this week's teacher time. For what is now our 13th year teaching at LoSal, Prof. Strogovitz has taught Spanish 1 and 4 for every single one. She says that having a large gap in years between students lets her see old faces in a new light and allows her to keep her classes interesting for everyone. If she's not teaching, she's on the water, and she loves to paddleboard with friends, go swimming, and when she's on the land, she loves to tend to her garden. Her favorite thing about LoSal is the freedom to teach. She says she can make her own lesson plans and do what matches her teaching style, but still gets the message across and information. A fun fact about her is that she didn't always want to be a teacher. Her dream job was actually being a mail carrier. When she was young, she loved being outside and thought that delivering mail would be a great way to do that every day, just not on Sundays, of course. As Prof. Strogovitz looks back on her time at LoSal, she believes that her years of teaching have shown people that we all can make a positive difference in our community. She has taught students how to navigate different cultures and languages for 13 years, and to sum up this week's teacher time nicely, her favorite quote of all time is, "The limits of my language mean the limits of my world." And it's about time for Student Spotlight, and we're going to sail right into this week's with Jack Hansen. Currently a senior at LoSal, Jack is 17 and navigates 5 classes. He especially loves his 3rd period physics class, which he accredits to Mr. Harmon's cheerfully funny attitude. What Jack loves more than anything, besides his Pit Viper sunglasses, is competitive sailing. He found his wind 5 years ago when he joined the Alamitos Bay Yacht Club sailing team, where he's still at today. But it didn't stop there. Jack is also a member of the Los Alamitos High School very own sailing club. Here he's able to mesh his competitive skills with his friends for what he now says is the best combination. What makes him enjoy the sport so much is the aspect of being able to train with friends. Training, Jack says, is done mostly with a partner, but when you're on the water, it's just you and your boat. Everyone's goal is to finish the race in a faster time, and most of the skill is developed on the water, but no one's afraid to keep what Jack calls speed hacks to themselves. After 5 years of putting his blood and sweat into sailing, Jack is now committed to play and attend school at Cal State Long Beach. Congratulations to you, Jack. Go and have a celebration for all your hard work, and as always, hats off to you. That's all for this report, folks. Have a happy holidays and a fantastic new year, and thank you for listening, and to those at home, thanks for watching. Have a good night.
Well, thank you very much, and don't ever be afraid to show emotion. Also, did you get those jokes from your dad?
You know what? I actually went online and searched up sailing jokes. So there's 41 online. It's the first one. So if you ever need them, they're there.
Thank you very much. Dr. Pulver, do you have anything?
Just my superintendent's report.
Okay, let's go.
Thank you, Madam President, esteemed members of the board. Will, it's always hard to follow you, and I think you just made it that much more difficult. I think there's been a lot of tears of joy and appreciation tonight, which absolutely, I think you moved us to tears as well. What's beautiful is really there was a benefactor. I think this is the second year that they've done it, where they've donated $15,000 to our ASB students to really get this experience, to be able to think back of someone who's changed their life or someone who they think could benefit from this. So each of them were given 3 $100 bills. Pretty cool video. If you wanted to watch the video, I'm sure the high school has posted it, ASB, if they haven't yet.
Yeah, it's on YouTube under LoSal ASB. It's about a 4-minute video. A great watch.
Thank you. And it's also neat to see how some people are still really pondering and what is the best way to make a difference within that. So, and I know from my own experience, and I'm sure from all of us, are sometimes when we give to others, we actually receive triple fold. And I'm sure you, just in your own experience, received that through the experience that you shared with all of us. So thank you. Some of my items Will already touched base on, so I might be able to move a little bit faster. But really wanted to spend a little bit more time again doing a spotlight on some of the art celebrations. If we think back all the way from November, that this is some of the time where for some of our schools, this is the first time they actually had live performances, where I think our art teachers were very creative last year in finding ways through digital formats, et cetera. But I can remember I was with a group of elementary teachers, and it just so happened to be that night was one of the schools' third grade patriotic show choir, or not show choir, their grade level performance. And the students and the parents were just ecstatic and so excited. Some of these are elementary concerts. They've done them obviously within our McGaw Auditorium, which is where we've traditionally done them for many of our school sites. But some have also gotten really creative because they wanted to be able to find ways to have our students be able to take their mask off and perform. So they invited their parents in. I know some of you went to, I know just Rossmore Elementary the other day, they split it up over 2 different performances. And they performed outdoors along, I know, with LAE doing that as well. So just really a great opportunity for our students to be able to come together and celebrate and to sing and really perform for our parents. And there's nothing, when I'm in the audience, what I love is sometimes, while I love to look at our students, I love to look at our parents, because to see the joy and their eyes light up, or their camera filming their student, is just heartwarming. So just some more examples of some winter concerts at our elementary schools. And I think this happens to be Lee Elementary that was at the McGaw Auditorium for their patriotic ceremonies. And then our 2 middle schools also finding ways to perform. They actually came together for the Winter Wonderland tree lighting ceremony, and in the Rossmore presentation today, I learned Rossmore and a few other students also performed at the Winter Wonderland tree lighting. So really neat to see our choir students team up and perform together for this. And then I had the distinct pleasure, unfortunately was not able to attend Oak Middle School's band performance. It was the same night that I attended the high school's choir performance, but I was at McAuliffe's, and I don't know if I've ever seen the NPR for the band program. It's so packed. It was standing room only. Initially, Dr. Weiswright was planning to have the students, when they weren't performing, to sit in the back of the NPR. They couldn't. There was no room. It was just beautiful to see. And then to see and what I loved about our band performance is that you can really see that there's a tight collaboration, because I happened to be at the McAuliffe, but our Oak teacher, Mr. Harrell, Mr. Padilla, they were both present at the McAuliffe concert, and I know they do that with one another. They really just support one another through this process as well. And it was neat to see our McAuliffe, for the first time, they had their intermediate band join their orchestra, and he created a full orchestra performance for all the students. And he said, well, maybe he called them crazy. They never got to practice it together until that night, but it really was a neat event, and I know our parents loved it as well. Will, you had shared a little bit about this coming up, that our jazz and our orchestra holiday concert is coming up on I think it's tomorrow. At 7 p.m. in the Performing Arts Center. They did do one, as many of us were, I think maybe all of us maybe were able to attend that one, the jazz band performance at the Gas Lamp over on November 2nd. Our marching band, they did a showcase for their performances for everyone to take a look at before their November 13th championship program. And then you touched base a little bit about our dance program that was held, where a lot of us were at a conference, and but our dance program just did a phenomenal job, and the Silks and the aerial acrobats, our girls and our boys who are in the dance program just did a fantastic job. And then over Thanksgiving break, we had that week-long break, the California Department of Public Health updated some guidance regarding face mask indoors with heavy exertion for both sports and for chorus. So this was the first concert where if they're doing heavy exertion, if they test weekly, they can choose to take their mask off. They can also choose to keep their mask on. And so that was a new guidance. So if you were able to capture that, you certainly got to see the faces of our students. And we forget sometimes how much of performing really is through our face and the nonverbal aspects. But if they were just singing as a chorus, they had to have their mask on because they weren't doing heavy exertion. So, but pretty exciting. It's a beautiful concert. The Hallelujah Choir, I think, was a hit. And they have their next performance coming up in February. I think it's the 10th, 11th, and 12th. So we're grateful for that. And then speaking of a newest update, some of you may have heard today's Tuesday, so it was yesterday. CDPH issued a new guidance that's statewide. This one is not specific to schools. It's actually for all industries and all sectors. For the next 4 weeks, starting tomorrow, CDPH is requiring universal masking indoors, irregardless if someone is vaccinated or not, from January 15th through, December 15th through January 15th. Really don't see that this has any effect at our schools, because quite honestly, at our school sites, they all had to be wearing masks actually since the fall of 2020. However, it will impact if a parent group is holding a meeting on the school site and students aren't present. If they've been vaccinated, they traditionally could take their mask off. It is required for these next 4 weeks. Our next board meeting, which is coming up on January 11th, where we heard Mrs. Davidson read that if you're vaccinated, you're self-attesting. If you don't wear a mask, unfortunately, on January 11th, or fortunately, depending upon where you stand, everyone in the audience will be required to wear a face covering because our board meeting is before January 15th. But as I said, we don't really see a major change here for our school sites. We have notified our employees, but there's little to make changes for our school sites and for our families, because it's really, for the most part, the status quo at our school sites. So, and with that, I want to wish, on behalf of the district, the Board of Education, just all of our families, this really is a time as well. We have a lengthier winter recess than we have had in the past. We have about 2.5 weeks. So we go through next Wednesday, and then we don't come back until a week after the new year. And so I want to wish all of you and our families just a warm and joyful time with your family and loved ones, and enjoy the holidays. And Happy New Year coming up the next time we see each other as a group in 2022.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pulver. And I love that you really focused on the arts and getting our children back into performing, as we could see tonight when we had Rossmore here. It's such a lesson for these children, and they're so joyful in doing it, and they spread such joy. So we are now going to go into board communication, and I will start with Mr. Fayette.
Thank you, Madam President Hill. Feels like it's been such a long time since the last board communication I've done. Thanksgiving was great. I got to be part of the churro handout, Mr. Forehand and I, at the high school. You are never more popular than we're handing out free churros and hot cocoa. Yeah. lots of thank yous. I was generally impressed. Well over 90 to 95% of the kids said thank you. Even the ones who may have cut the line and stuck their arm in through to grab one. But really impressed. Even the kids at the end, when we did give out all the churros, there were still some students who didn't get them. They didn't pout. There was no, they were just, oh, thank you, that's okay. So I was very, very impressed with just the politeness and the behavior of the kids. And they had giant Jenga, tic-tac-toe, and cornhole and various games. It was just joyful to see the kids out there acting like kids. These were high school kids just having fun. So I enjoyed it. Thank you so much to the district and the administrative staff at the high school for allowing me to take part of that. That was fantastic. I did get to see several of the art shows. The stuff is fantastic. The middle schools, the high schools are incredible. When you go to these things and they say, oh, it's band 3 or jazz 1, and you're like, oh, wow, that's fantastic. They started with the best ones or the most advanced ones. And then the next one is better. And then the next one is even better than that. Just incredible dedication that these kids have and the staff to support them to develop that level of proficiency at singing and musical instruments and the dance. I know that when they do some of the things, particularly the dance, my heart is up in my throat half the time because I am just like, how can they do that? But very impressive. And I think that's it. It was pretty short. It was a long time. I know I did a lot, but I must have some tryptophan left over because I Rip Van Winkled it. So thank you.
Thank you, President Hill. Yeah, it has been a long time. The top of my list of the things that I've been able to do since our last board meeting is that I was able to sit in our ethnic studies class for one entire session. It was a wonderful experience. I got to get into a small group with 3 of the other students. We were discussing the Native Americans treaties and comparing it to, I believe it's the 1964 Human Rights Statement put out by the United Nations. So we're talking about something that occurred in the 1800s and then compared it from the 1960s and just talking about how it relates to today. And I'm just sitting there thinking, this is so much critical thinking going on. I was just happy. So I was very, very enjoyable. And I may ask Mrs. Reed to do it again just because it was so much fun. I was able to attend an Orange County School Boards Association dinner meeting. I have our state of the district. Has it been that long since we've got together? Well, from what I remember, because it was so long ago, the state of the district was really outstanding. It was a sold out affair. It's sponsored by LAIF, and we were able to do an update. And it was just, once again, it was such a pleasure to get together a group of people socially and to talk about the great things that we're doing here in LaSalle. And then another thrilling thing that I got to do with our Citizens Oversight Committee, and most of the board members were attended to, is we did a walkthrough on our new STEM building that is not complete yet. It's the 3-story building, on Cerritos. We couldn't go to the 3rd floor, but we were able to walk through parts of the 1st and parts of the 2nd. And that is just, that I am so glad we chose the architects that we did. They're incredibly creative and smart and on time and on budget. And it was that building will be our show place. It's just has so many wonderful things about it. And we're hoping it's going to be open August of next year. I attended the board of directors meetings for the California School Boards Association. I also, all of us attended the annual educational conference put on by CSBA. And it was my honor to be a panelist during one of the sessions that evidently it was pretty popular, it was pretty crowded, and that was great. But they actually videotaped it and showed it 4 times. And then another opportunity that I had is that I was asked to testify before an Assembly and Senate Joint Committee in Sacramento, and was an informational hearing. I have to read it because it was such a long name. An informational hearing on election reform. And they had only invited 4 people to give testimony, and it was very honored that I was one of the 4 that was able to have a good conversation with the people in the committee. And last but not least, I went to my ROP meeting, which are Career Technical Ed. We also had our first interim report, and we're doing fine with our ROP financially, and we were very excited because ROP is now funded basically through grants. It used to be considered a categorical form of fund, but now it is through a grant. And North Orange County ROP received one of the largest in the state. We got $13 million. So we're like, yay, you know. So we're looking at ways to, you know, the thing with career technical education is that you constantly are updating your equipment, regardless of it, if it's an engineering class or an auto body shop. You are constantly upgrading your equipment because they're constantly making newer and better things, and you want it to be industry standards. So that's it. And I just wanted to say, I was the presenter at the conference. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Scott. I just wanted to wish everybody a very happy holidays, and I wish everybody health and happiness in the new year. That's it.
Thank you, Mrs. Catulli. And Mrs. Davidson.
Thank you, President Hill. Yeah. I'll keep this brief because I've already talked a lot, but I really was appreciative of the walkthrough at the high school. When you look at that building from the boulevard, it looks gigantic. Oh, that's just nothing. It's so deep and gigantic. The rooms are incredible. Chemistry is going to be a dream come true to all our young scientists. The room for the robotics kids is gigantic with huge doors so that their robots can get out. We didn't have that before. You had to put it in pieces and take it out and put it back together. There's so much that will be there for our students, and I'm personally really excited because my nephew will be a sophomore, and I tell him how wonderful it is, but you know, kids are caught in the moment. He'll have to see it to believe it. We even have a staircase that goes out. It's so gigantic, a staircase out to the quad that will allow choir and other performing arts to present their programs outside for the kids and for the community. It's absolutely stupendous. I loved our week our few days in San Diego at the conference. A big focus for us as a board and for me individually is mental health and how we are going to address the social emotional needs of our students. And there were some expert presentations with incredible ideas and opportunities. I think, once again, we have to go back to, yes, there's been learning loss through the pandemic, but no learning loss can be addressed unless we care about the hearts of our kids. So it was a wonderful experience. There were some great ideas. Previous conferences, there were the ideas for the wellness centers and the counselors that address mental health for our students. Were developed were initiated for us. So it's a great opportunity for us to see what's going on in other parts of the state and to look into the future for new ideas. I can't thank Justin Padilla or David Mullenkamp or all the directors of our performing arts enough for their gifts. Justin's, the jazz band, it was exactly what Scott said. You thought the beginning band that opened the concert was the best band. And I even had people tell me I was silly to think differently until they heard the next band. So it was really an incredible accomplishment. When I went to the winter concert for choir, I just can't, the light that comes through music is just so incredibly uplifting. And David Mullenkamp and Juana and all of those who do the instructing really give these kids spirit and life. And I loved, and I want David Mullenkamp to know, I heard the closing message he gave, and he told me he purposely gave it just before the Hallelujah chorus, for that his hope is that our nation heals and that we can come together in love. And I think that for him to say that to us and to say that to our children very purposefully and much more eloquently was wonderful. I want to also close with thanking Dr. Pulver, because the other night I went to this city council meeting to present a certificate of appreciation and recognition to Mayor Churko, and thank you, Mark Churko, for your great service to Los Alamitos. And I went as a representative of the board and cabinet and district. When I was there, Tanya Doby, who's on the city council, shared how she had come to our State of the District And she specifically identified the joy in the room, which is so Tanya Doby. And she also, but she recognized that Dr. Pover sort of framed the entire morning with his message of love and how, and I won't say it right, and I hope you correct me, how every child is just one loving loving adult away from being a success in life, that each one of us with every encounter matter. So I thank you for that. I thank you for the time in San Diego and your leadership and how you took care of all of us there. And I wish you, almost, yeah, Diana has her own story. I want to wish everybody a happy holiday. Please take these 2 weeks to rest, enjoy your families, and realize that 2022 has got to be on a good road. So thank you.
Vice President Foran.
Oh my gosh, thank you, President Hill. It's been a long time, but I thought about it way back to Veterans Day. I mean, all the school events celebrating our wonderful veterans. I attended our SELPA meeting and represented the board, and it was great to hear about the program specialist role. I didn't realize that, and Amanda Smith is ours. I still believe she's out with her new baby, but she'll be back, and it's just amazing the support SELPA gives our special ed parents, special ed kids. So it's a great support to the district. I got to see 26 Oak drama kids inducted into the Thespian Honor Society. Wow, state of the district was good. And I think I have to give Andrea, I want to be Andrea in my next life because she puts together these magical PowerPoints. And I know you appreciate it very much, as do all of us. The tour of the new state-of-the-art building, and I've decided in my next life I'm going to teach science instead of elementary school, and that way I can use that state-of-the-art classrooms. I love how we have character traits awards across the district, and I got to go to one because grandson number 1 was honored for his kindness and acceptance to others. I won't say much more than I'm on a Broadway tour. Everywhere I go, I see arts programs that I leave in awe. And I'm looking forward to another one Friday night with the jazz band. We talked a lot about wellness. Well, the wellness warriors, our counselors, they're going to every site with snacks and all kinds of goodies for our employees. And then I got to go to the auxiliary to see the maintenance yard receive theirs. That was great. I always have a nuts and bolts section of my report, and first I wanted to thank CJ because we had an issue at the high school over the weekend, and he was there on Sunday, I think you told us, with a crew that solved the problem by Monday afternoon, I believe. So thank you, CJ. I started round 2 of serving lunch, and I went back to the high school, and Scott, you're absolutely right. The kids there are so polite. But I'll tell you, it was like night and day from day 2 when we were there to whatever day I got to go. So lunch is going great there. I finished at McGaw, and they're in good hands. And I'll be scooping spaghetti on Thursday. That's my favorite job at Oak. And today I went back in life and did support at Lee on rainy day lunch. And I've decided I don't miss that one iota. The generosity across this district is phenomenal, but we heard from Rossmore about their nights for adopting each classroom and packed up stuff last Friday, I believe, and adopted a family from the Casa Youth Center, right? And that was great. But Andrew and I went to the on our tour of the high school, the math classes were each in competition as to who could get the most money donated in the math class. And they then are reaching out to a family at every elementary school to donate for them to have a happier holiday season. Interact Club is doing gift cards. And then every site I've read their newsletter, they're all collecting gift cards and whatever they can do for a family in need. So it's just like you said, Will, it brings tears to your eyes when you think about everything going on for everybody. I got to read last week in 4th grade at Lee, and these are the kids that I started out my career as a volunteer in TK with. And I walked into the first classroom and I thought, oh, I think I've died and gone to heaven. I couldn't believe the quality these young adults are now. They couldn't hold a pencil barely in TK. And I'm looking at their writing and they're all authors now. And they were sitting independently working on their laptops when I walked in. But I think that's a big tribute to us, not to me or us right here, but to the teachers out there who are so building such great kids from the TK level all the way to graduation from high school. So I think that's a great way for me to end, and happy holidays to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice President Forehand. And just I'll just add a couple of other things, but choir, if you haven't ever had a chance to see the holiday show, put it on your calendar for next year, because it will certainly put you into the holiday spirit. And I loved Director Mullenkamp. He just talked about the resilience of his students, and I think that is a lesson that is really important for us to be learning these days, and our students can certainly teach us that. I went to Winter Wonderland and got to see hear the jazz band, and I got to see Lee choir sing and a couple of others, and it was I have to say it was very fun for me because I had an actual little person to take with me this time. And then our CSBA conference was amazing, and it was a great opportunity. Heard some really influential speakers. I also am part of what's called Delegate Assembly. And so that was a learning experience for me, putting together policy for our School Boards Association. And the tour of the 3-story building at the high school was just spectacular. And it was really unique. CJ, thank you very much. And please thank everybody. It was really unique. So you could use a QR code. You could go into a room, say it was a science room, and hit your QR code on your phone, and you could take a virtual tour of that room, what it would be like when it was finished, standing in the middle of it. And it was really spectacular. And I know when we first started, I thought, this is going to take forever. It's never going to be finished. And I can't believe that students are going to be in there starting next August. So that's exciting. And then one last thing before I wish everybody happy. Oh, I did go to the CIF playoff game, our first CIF football playoff game against St. John Bosco, and we did not come out the victor. However, my husband did tell me that we, at that point in time, scored more points against Bosco than anybody except for Mater Dei. So I think our football players played very well, although I'm sure that would not have made them feel any better as they walked off the field. And then I really want to thank staff. I see Stacy back there, and I know that this year this last 2 years has been very difficult. And we talk about how wonderful it has been for our students to be back in class and be back in full days and so on and so forth. And the challenges that our teachers have had to overcome during this whole last 2 years has just, I can't imagine if personally my professional job changed so dramatically at a moment's whim. And I still had a job to do. And these teachers teach with passion and desire to make the students the very best students and people they can be. And I know it's been a lot. And I wish there was some way besides the words thank you for us to really be able to demonstrate that. But we do realize that we've all been through a lot, and you've been through so much and such a change professionally. So thank you very much for that. And then I just want to wish everybody happy holidays. And so I will now ask the board if you desire to go into a recess, or shall we move into public comment? Move into public comment? Okay. No cookies for us. I'm going to go ahead and read this statement about public comment. Open session items, non-agenda and non-agendized items. The board welcomes input from the public. This is an opportunity for community members to provide public comment to the board on agenda items or items not listed on the agenda. Persons wishing to address the board should complete a speaker request card. It looks like this, and it's out in the lobby. Each speaker is limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. Public comment is limited to a total of 30 minutes. Comment cards can be submitted to the district office anytime after 9 a.m. And throughout the day of the board meeting, and will also be accepted at the start of the board meeting. A speaker may not relinquish his or her time to another, and when addressing the board, speakers are requested to address the board from the podium, which is over here, state their name and address, or not necessarily address, but where they live if they so choose, and then also adhere to the time limits. The board may not take any action or discuss any item not appearing on the posted agenda and cannot immediately respond to public comments. I know that's really hard. I get it, but that's the way it works. Speakers are cautioned that under the California law, no person is immune from liability for making intentionally false or defamatory comments regarding any person simply because those comments are made at a public meeting. With that being said, we have, I believe, about 7 comment cards. So I believe this evening everybody will have a full 3 minutes, and I really appreciate that opportunity. So our first speaker is Dorothy Farrell. You got your card in first.
I know. So Dorothy Farrell, and first I want to just kind of wish everybody a Merry Christmas. You know, it is a joyous time of the year. And what I wanted to do was address the board tonight and just to put it out there. I expect everybody on this board to start advocating for our kids, not sitting around on their hands, which is what's been happening, and that is my opinion. I don't know if you're paying attention to what's going on in the state of California with other school boards. Even our Board of Education here in Orange County has just recently filed their second lawsuit against Newsom just before Thanksgiving. I don't know who's following that. I don't know if anybody's following all the other school boards that are resisting the insanity that's going on right now, or if you even know who some of them are. So I'll tell you a few of them. Capistrano School District, Calaveras School District, East Whittier School District, Apple Valley School District, Clovis School District, Alpine School District. That's just a few of them that are saying no to the insanity that you're imposing on our kids. Alpine School District, which is in San Diego County, is even discussing in-person learning for unvaccinated kids. It's sad that that's happening, but that's where they're at. This is a day of reckoning for us as a society, no matter how you look at it. And right now, when I say a day of reckoning, I am talking about me and my family. We will not force our children to take an injection that's non-FDA approved, that doesn't have a list of ingredients. And now the FDA wants 75 years to release the study for Pfizer? Are you kidding me? Are you guys paying attention to any of this? We just talked about science with everybody here. So, with that being said, I'm going to give you a little quote from Mr. Gruesome Newsom from the Good Morning Show earlier this week when he was, or actually it was last week, when he was on there peddling his book. And I'll quote him. And this is in response to the LA USD school district forcing and peddling the mandate early. I don't know, have you guys been paying attention to that? So when Gruesome Newsom was questioned about the 35,000 kids that in January were not going to be able to go back to school, His quote was, "We need to fine tune this. This is interactive. We want to keep the kids in school. We don't want to have, 34,000 kids sit home. Quite to the contrary." And that's why I said what you have to do is accommodate. And I have all the confidence in the world that the school board will accommodate in reference to LAUSD.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Farrell. Stacy Muller.
Hey, everybody, Merry Christmas. I wish Will was here. I wanted to tell him I love him and his parents. What a beautiful child they have raised. I can't take it. We've talked about a lot of great stuff that's going on in the school district, and I really appreciate it. I didn't know that we could just pass the gavel to Diana. So Diana, now you're the president.
We didn't pass the gavel. I can't answer this. We didn't pass it. We voted me in.
Okay, but so you're the president now?
Correct.
And Chris is the vice president, and this is ongoing from now on?
For the next year, correct.
For the next year. Okay, because I'm excited because I know that a lot of us want to get more involved, and I can't wait to not be rotating everybody that's up there already and have new blood in that have new ideas and stuff eventually. So that's what I'm excited about. I'm just stating that. So the vaccine apparently is going to be talked about after this speaking part. That's hard because I think a lot of us want to talk about that. I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of us are here to talk. I'm speaking for a lot of moms and dads who aren't here, who are watching and want to know what's going on. So I'm up here talking about something that hasn't happened yet. I want to see how you guys respond to that. If you do go through with the vaccine mandate, you're going to have a hell of a time filling your seats in school. I need you to know that. A hell of a time. So, having said that, I was hoping that I was going to be able to speak to any decision or any discussion that you were going to have about that. It's so important for us. Diana, you have mentioned before, Marlis, you have mentioned before, specifically at the meetings, that you want to hear from the parents, that you want to acknowledge the parents and make sure they're heard, particularly on this topic. However, I want to know if you have reached out to the parents about this, surveys or discussions or town halls or meetings, or, okay, Marlis is nodding her head. I haven't heard of anything. I don't know anyone else that has. I think we're all freaking out about this. No one's touching my kids, and I know that no one's touching a lot of these parents' kids and a lot of parents at home. No one. So I want to be on the same page together. I really do. I want to work together. But I keep saying this at every board meeting, and I still haven't heard from anybody. And I'm worried about it, and we all are. It's because that's going to pull, your school's not going to have any, you don't need the wellness centers when you don't have any kids. So I hope we can talk about this together. And I haven't heard from anybody on this topic. So.
Thank you very much. We will be having a discussion on a resolution a little bit later in the meeting. The next up is Isabella Rapoli. Thank you very much. Not my strong suit, pronouncing names.
Am I allowed to lower this? Oh, thank you. Hi, I'm Isabella Rapoli. I've come here to speak on behalf of my friends who couldn't make it this evening, and about the division that's tearing us students apart. You realize the mandates have caused stress, anxiety, depression, suicide attempts, and pain for us simply knowing that what you guys choose that you think is better for us will make us unable to attend school next year. This mandate is causing breakups in friendships, division in groups, and our school is divided between who's vaccinated and who's not. It's sickening, and I'm hoping since I'm the first student actually up here telling you guys how we feel about this, it will make you guys maybe think upon it. It's unfair. Make the right choice and let us have our life as kids. Let us go to school. We enjoy our teachers. We enjoy our friends. We enjoy the campus, the sports. Don't take it away from us. It's sad how you can look at LaSalle and think they're for equality, telling children they're accepted for who they are. You want to make everyone feel loved, cared, and equal, but it's all about race and sexual orientation. But when it comes to this vaccine, you guys can care less. We feel hated, uncared for, and it makes us feel like we are nothing. You guys have no reaction or sympathy towards us. This will make LaSalle a breaking point if you continue on. What's so different from when we first started school back in 2020 and to now, how we have to be vaccinated to go? I have some Bible verses I want to share about equality and love. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 14, for he himself is our peace, who has made the two groups one and has destroyed the barrier, the dividing wall of hostility. John chapter 13, verse 16, very truly I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Mark chapter 12, verse 31, the second is this, love your neighbor as yourself. There's no commandment greater than these. In Philippians chapter 2, verse 3, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, rather in humility, value others above yourself. Lastly, Proverbs chapter 22, verse 2, I hope this one goes into your guys' minds. Rich and poor have this in common, but the Lord is the maker of all of them. We're all equal. We should all love each other. There's no point to be divided. It's sad. I want to go to school. Sucks.
Thank you very much, Isabel. Our next speaker is Lauren.
Okay, well, I'm happy we found out about this meeting this morning because as you can see, there's nobody here. Okay. Today, USD, California's largest school district and the second largest school district in the nation, suspends enforcement of injection mandate, all because ordinary moms and dads linked arms and showed up to the school board meetings and the school rallies that we held. The line on unwavering opposition to unconstitutional and unethical medical mandates on our children's bodies. This is not a left versus right issue. This is a human rights issue. What you're supporting is inhumane and absent of love. Find that love within you guys. Find that love for humanity within you, please. I'm begging you. I know it's there. People aren't getting vaccinated against COVID. They're getting vaccinated against unemployment, loss of travel, public opinion, loss of freedom, and now our children possibly loss of education. This is not about a virus. It's about control. The government does not grant us our freedom. The government serves us to ensure us our freedom. We will be free either way. I have a verse as well. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. This is 2 Corinthians 3:17. And that's all I have to say. I hope you guys do make the right decision for our children. I hope that I could one day again be proud to say that my child goes to the school that I once graduated from. I just want to say to Marilyn, I forgive you. I forgive you for what you said, okay? I know that you apologized, and I forgive you, and I hope that every single one of you up there can do what's best for our children. You guys have $1.8 million being granted by the state to do whatever you want with it. Pulver, you said you have an absence of getting teachers to substitute. What are we doing with this money? For well spaces because our children are committing suicide, they're depressed. They want to go to school. They want to play sports. They deserve this. Please do what's best for our children. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Dan Brandt.
Good evening. I'm Dan Brandt. This is my 4th time coming here, hopefully my last. I'm here to advocate for my kids like I've spoken with to you before. I wouldn't be here if I didn't know how good this district was, and I want my kids to be here. I'm here because I support the resolution that we send, although I feel like we could go a little further because I'd like to send it to Newsom also, but I understand the importance of sending this resolution as a message to our legislators that they cannot pass this because that'll get rid of our exemptions. I think we should have personal exemptions. So I appreciate the board's decision to discuss this. As we've seen, the size of the federal government and the state government continues to increase the power and control. Okay, I don't like to make this about politics, but the reality is that we're losing local control. That's what we keep happening, local control. That's why we need to pass a resolution to send a message that parents aren't going to allow that to happen. So, like I said, I don't want to make up politics, but Newsom is drunk with power right now. He's sending out the mandate or proposed mandate for our children without going through the legislation. And I don't appreciate that. And that's why I'm here. So I'm going to tell you, we need to send, like I said, let's approve this mandate. Approve the resolution against the mandate. Okay, now we have the Omicron variant. Where does this end, right? We're just going to continue, right? Just to continue the power and the control, okay? I'm going to say, they say the vaccine doesn't work against it, but it protects from severe illness, where our kids aren't getting severely ill from COVID. So we're going to give them a vaccine or force them to, and then now, it's not working anyways. So I don't understand that part. I'll tell you that school districts should be able to make the best decisions for their kids, and that's what I advocate, and that's why I'm here. I said the FDA committee, they're approving this, and they say the reactions are going to be similar to what adults have had for the vaccine. I can tell you, I haven't shared this, but like my wife, she got the vaccine, and for 3 days she was passed out she was on her bed, and one day she passed out on the ground. I'm not going to do that to my kids. That's not going to happen. So, I don't want those acute reactions, but I also don't know what the long-term reactions are. So that's not going to happen. If my kids have to get vaccinated, my kids aren't going to be in the school, and that's unfortunate because I love this district. So all I'm going to say is that my goal since I've been here is to get a resolution so we can send a message to the legislators not to pass it. And I hope that our board members will support that and come up with a compromise because that's what we've been doing this whole time. It's not perfect, but it's a great compromise. Let's pass this, please.
Thank you. Our next card is for Claire C.
Good evening, everyone. And I just want to give a little bit of fact that 75% of the population got vaccinated. One is Israel, another is Singapore. But the vaccine didn't block the COVID-19 virus. And the least vaccinated population in this world, one is India, another is Afghanistan. And they don't have the problem of the COVID-19. Okay, that's the latest statistics. And I come here just to oppose the vaccine mandate. I think that's their personal choice. And the vaccine is never approved by FDA. It's just under the precondition of emergency cases. And we cannot put those vaccine to our kids because for the year being, we never know what happened. And the damage will be permanently hurt. And currently, we never know. So when we make decision, we need to double think and make things sure and certain that would be benefits for our kids for the next of the decades. So I wish and I also pray for God give you enough wisdom and the strength to make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa Miller.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to say that, all of you that are on the board are, extremely educated. You have advanced degrees, most of you. You've had to apply a lot of critical thinking in what you've done over the years. And don't forget, this is about the mandate for the jab. It's not a vaccine. I don't care if the CDC changed their ruling in the middle of July. It's not a vaccine. The PCR test is going away at the end of the month. Why? Because it's been proven time and time again that it's false positive. It was never intended to be a COVID test, but the cycling's been wrong. You could find a fragment in anybody. But use your critical thinking here. What's wrong with the picture? Most of you are in a mask and have admittedly been vaccinated and boosted with whatever the experimentation is. Not one of you has the same, probably the same content or ingredients as the next person because it is experimental. It won't be finished until 2023. Nobody wants to have foreign material where we don't even know the ingredients in our bodies or in our children's. And I think you have to listen to these parents here. This is not about, you have a lot of power as you sit here. As one of the speakers just said, LAUSD said, okay, we're gonna call it off so that 30,000 kids could go back to school. But that doesn't mean that there's not a lawsuit with the 500 plus who've been fired from that district. It's coming, and it's not gonna go away, and no one's gonna forget about it. But you have the opportunity now to do something on behalf of the kids of this district and the parents. If they want their child to have medication or be a part of an experiment, so be it. As parents, that's their decision. But to deny someone to go to a school or a class because because the state believes that they're doing something on behalf of the child and taking away the parent decision is wrong. It's discrimination. It's medical segregation. And I don't think anyone wants to stand for it. So we hope that you'll make the right decision. We hope that you're going to critically think. And if you haven't asked yourself or done your own research of the thousands of other doctors that have a differing opinion, I would urge you to do that. There is a lot of information out there. And CDC, FDA, NIH is not the only place to find it. So I implore you to do the right thing tonight. I'm certain you probably will. You're smart people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we'll move on to presentation of supplemental materials. Dr. Pulver? Which button are you going to push?
Sorry, I had to find the microphone as opposed to the 3-minute timer. Yes, we have moved that, and then the consent items, and we have tried to move up the discussion on the resolution sooner than normal so that the audience could not feel like they had to be through for the whole agenda.
Thank you very much. So Mrs. Reed for presentation of supplemental materials.
Thank you so much, President Hill. Tonight we're bringing forward Haggerty phonics materials for grades kindergarten, first and second for teachers to use in the classroom to provide targeted phonics support. These materials will be on public preview in the Education Services Office for the next 30 days.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the board? Great, then I think we'll move on to our consent items, and I would be looking for a motion. It looks like that we do have a pull for 13W. So I need a motion for 13A through V and then X through double P.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion on the items? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Now we'll move on to item 13W.
I will move approval.
Discussion?
Yeah, I pulled that item and I just want to highlight it. Usually our elementary schools have a voluntary trip to Sacramento in the 4th grade so the kids can go, they study California history, and it gives them a chance to go to Sacramento and see the historic things they have around there, and the Capitol building, which is a fantastic building. Well, with COVID, that went out the door. And what I just want to highlight is that Rossmore, Weaver, and Hopkinson, is that correct, Dr. Polder?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Those 3 elementary schools are, again, it's voluntary, and if the students still have interest in it, are having their current 5th graders go to Sacramento, a different time than the 4th graders, but so that they can kind of like go back and reclaim their 4th grade experience. And I just thought that was a very open and welcoming thing for the schools to do, and I just wanted to highlight it.
Thank you, Mrs. Catulli. Any other comments? I will call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. We will now move on to our action items, and the first action item we have is a discussion and consideration of Resolution 2021 through 2022-09 for the district statement regarding COVID-19 vaccine and defined exemptions. And so I'd like to open a discussion up to the board. If I brought this forward, as we know, on the last meeting, because I think it's something that's important that we should be discussing. I got a couple of emails from people saying, you've been advocating that people should be going directly to their representatives and sending emails, and you keep saying you have no power. And so I do believe that we need to advocate individually, but we have talked to our elected officials, and our elected officials have said that a resolution does help them in their process when they're in Sacramento. So that is another reason for us to be looking at it, to be talking or speaking from that collective voice. And so I didn't know if we wanted to read through it, if we wanted to just, because we've all read it, whether we
Madam
want.
President, I would recommend, I think there are even some people in the audience who may not know what the resolution states, so it might be clear to, at least in its discussion standpoint, read the resolution and then have the board discussion. And again, this might be something that we discuss over future meetings as well.
Absolutely.
But I do think I would recommend spending some time reading each piece of it.
Great. Thank you very much, Dr. Pulver. So, Vice President Forham?
Yes. My pleasure to take over and read the resolution for district statement regarding the COVID-19 vaccine and defined exemptions. Whereas the Los Alamitos School District, Los Alamitos USD, is responsible for and deeply committed to providing access to an appropriate public education for all students residing within its boundaries and those attending district schools. Whereas the Los Alamitos Unified School District is further responsible to take all appropriate and reasonable actions to protect and promote the health and safety of all students within its schools and facilities. Whereas Governor Newsom, state and federal education experts, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and Los Alamitos Unified School District have acknowledged that the best academic and social emotional outcomes for students come from traditional in-person classroom instruction. Whereas Los Alamitos Unified School District, serving over 9,100 students in Orange County, demonstrated its commitment to in-person instruction by being one of the first public school districts in the state to safely welcome students back to campus for in-person instruction while continuing to follow and implement all California Department of Public Health guidelines. Whereas on October 1st, 2021, Governor Newsom issued a press release and additional information indicating that he intends to direct the CDPH to add the COVID-19 vaccine to other vaccinations required for in-person school attendance for students in K-6 and K-12 grade spans. Whereas the Los Alamitos Unified School District is both a local educational agency as well as an agency of the state for purposes of implementing educational policy and operation of public schools to safeguard the educational, health, and safety needs of Los Alamitos Unified School District students and community within its geographic boundaries. Whereas the state of California has authorized and delegated a local school district governing boards the responsibility to cooperate with state and local health officers in measures necessary for the prevention and control of communicable diseases in school-age children. Whereas both parents and employees have expressed a desire for exemptions to be in place for students and employees who, due to medical conditions and/or religious or personal beliefs, are unable to or choose not to obtain the COVID-19 vaccine. Whereas California's immunization laws prior to 2015 have historically contained a personal belief exemption for students whose parents, guardians filed a letter with the school stating that immunization was contrary to their personal beliefs. Whereas the district additionally acknowledges the view of parents and employees who have expressed support to adopt requirements that all eligible non-exempt students and employees receive the COVID-19 vaccination. And whereas the board acknowledges that school board members are not decision makers regarding health and safety orders, but instead advocates for the best interests of students, employees, and families within its jurisdictional boundaries. Now, therefore, the Board of Education of the Los Alamitos School District hereby finds, determines, declares, and resolves as follows: that the above recitals are true and correct. This board believes that in-person instruction is invaluable in promoting the educational and social-emotional development of Los Alamitos Unified School District students. The board strongly urges the state of California and its elected officials and regulatory agencies to keep COVID-19 vaccination, medical, religious, and personal belief exemptions in place for students and employees.
Thank you very much, Mr. Forham. I appreciate it. I guess we'll start Mr. Fayed. It just helps me keep it in order if we just go down the line. So,
No worries. So I'll go first. Just some things. So we've heard from the community that this is a very important topic to talk about. This resolution is a vehicle that allows us to discuss it, because as a board, we can't talk to each other. So we don't really know what we think and what we want to do. So this allows us, this is a vehicle that allows us to talk about it. Kind of like that stick of celery is just the vehicle that allows all that dip to get into my tummy. I'm really looking for information from the parents. I know how I feel. I know what I know. I'm not a health expert. I've read a lot, way more than I thought I would ever have to. I've done my research to the best of my ability. I do not have a medical degree. I get queasy at the sight of blood. This is something that I'm looking for information from you, the parents. I don't have a 5-year-old that's looking or concerned as a parent about getting this vaccine. I don't know how you feel. So I'm looking for the parents and the experts in our community to give me some guidance, to give me some information so that I can determine what is the best course of action. The things that are in the resolution, you should read it, very carefully. It talks about how we've followed the health instructions in the past. We were able to go back safely. We were able to keep our schools open, and we're going to follow the health directives in the future. So, like I said, that's just a quick little thing that I am struggling with. Should someone lose their job because they do not believe in this vaccine? Should a kid be denied in-person quality public education because the parent does not want them to get this vaccine? And like I said, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to hear from the community, from reasonable, logical, this is how I feel, this is why I feel that way. And like I said, that's what I'm looking for, is to open up the discussion.
yes, Mrs. Catulli.
Okay, I have my thoughts written down here, and you guys are going to have to go along the journey of my thoughts because I don't like it when people say we're not being transparent. So you'll have to go with my convoluted logic here. I do want to start out by saying I am not a physician, I'm not a microbiologist, and I'm not an epidemiologist. But like Mr. Fayette, I have done reading and I have done some research. I also want to throw in a comment that a friend of mine made now probably close to 3 months ago when a group of us were discussing the ever-changing CIF rules and how they apply to the different sports at the high school. And before anybody could basically make their comment, she said, "Now, wait a second. Remember, there's no judging in COVID. That's so 2020. So I want everybody here to realize that we're not judging one another. We're having a discussion about this, and we're not thinking, you think this way, therefore you are. So I just want everybody to remember there's just no judging in COVID. I want to say for the record that I am vaccinated and I have gotten my booster shot. I think that the vaccinations are safe, and I think if any of us really truly want to get over this pandemic and get rid of these face masks, we should all get vaccinated. This particular vaccination has more data and a larger number of people that have been tested. They have more data on this than most other vaccines would get in 10 years, but they do not have longitudinal data, meaning they don't have 5 years out data, but they have a huge quantity of data of people taking it and how they're reacting and whether they're getting COVID and what kind of COVID they get. This vaccine wasn't really pushed through in a hysterical manner. They used a pre-existing platform to put the particular coronavirus on the platform, which is why we did not have vaccines for many years, for decades, for viruses, because it was hard to get the platform for the delivery. We also, and it kept thinking this was like when we raced to the moon, you put enough money towards something and enough people dedicate towards something, you can create something. And that was the COVID vaccine. But do I think everyone should be vaccinated? I have reservations about younger kids getting these vaccinations. And I couldn't even tell you, I have 12-year-old grandsons. They're vaccinated, they're great, they had no problems with them, and they're enjoying their school and sports and regular life. So I'm very happy for them. And I don't know whether, is a 6-year-old old enough? Is an 8-year-old old enough? I don't know. I mean, I truly don't know. I do know that younger children metabolize things differently, and when younger children become sick, particularly with cancer, treatments are radically different because their bodies are radically different. So I really have a big question mark about what do you do about these little younger children. I also know that by the same, see, I'm going yin and yang. I also know that infants and toddlers get vaccinations when they go to, I have 2 young grandchildren, and they go in and they get their vaccinations, but these are vaccinations that have been around for a long time. Also, I have always supported the entire time on the board the parents making the decisions for their kids, because I feel like they really know their child best, and they shouldn't be forced to do something that they're uncomfortable with. Oh, okay. Thank you. Right now, children the cases with the coronavirus, the children don't get that sick, that their cases are very light. To the best of my knowledge, I know of 1 death in the United States, and the trouble with information like that is that I am assuming that there was, the child probably was ill with something else or had preconditions that made the coronavirus worse, but I don't know because they don't give out that information on minors, and they probably really shouldn't. But you have to also, okay, so the kids don't get sick as often, and we don't get them vaccinated. And I've gotten emails from people who say, I'm undergoing chemo treatment. My kid can't be with children who aren't vaccinated. I have an autoimmune system. My children need to be vaccinated. There are so many things that are happening in people's houses that we don't know about. But do we have the right to say, yes, you have to vaccinate your kid? I know I'm flip-flopping all over the place. I know we have a lot of families in support of the vaccination, and we have a lot of families who are concerned about having non-vaccinated students in their classrooms. I've gotten emails from both of these people. I also have a concern about if we have to have if the mandate goes through and there are no exemptions, what do we do with our children whose parents don't want them vaccinated? We don't have La Salle at home set up. We don't have the teachers for it. We can't find enough subs to take care of our classrooms when we have professional development days, so much less trying to set up a whole new online school. I don't like the idea of our children attending the county online school or being homeschooled. I just think that we try in La Salle to do this, we try to do things better, and that's so I want our kids in our classrooms. So I am really looking forward to hearing what my other board members say, because I know we've all been thinking about it. So it's like my head says, yes, the children should be vaccinated, but my heart says, I can't make a parent do that. So.
Mrs. Davidson?
Okay. In an effort to not be redundant or repetitive, I would like to say I absolutely agree with Meg in terms of the dilemma of whether or not a parent should have the right to make a choice for a young child. I want to address this more imposing issues and questions, and then I hope if we don't come to a decision tonight that the board members in the district will hear responses to these issues. In our resolution, we said that that it is our responsibility to provide access to an appropriate public education for all students. And this, when she talks yin yang, it's polar opposites, because on one hand, I have to think about and be concerned about the well-being of all the students in the class, those that are vaccinated whose parents feel like an unvaccinated child is a threat. But then on the other hand, I have an obligation to honor parents and to also provide an education for their children, a public education for their children. And the problem is I agree that Governor Newsom did not do a good job of putting this mandate out. First of all, it was a press release, and it's caused so much anxiety, fear, and anger and it has no substance to it, because in the first place, he says that if you are under the mandate, if your child isn't vaccinated, then you can't come to school. But then, unlike the previous distribution of funds, he's given us no allocation of money for La Salle at home learning. He's given us no plan for how to educate our kids. La Salle takes real pride in the rigor of our education, the connections our teachers make. That all goes to the wind if we kick kids out of our school for not getting a vaccination. That's not fulfilling my role. It's really hard to find an answer to this. But when we opened our schools first, and kept them open, we did it by following guidelines, masking, social distancing. We did what we needed to do, and we did it incredibly effectively. We shut down the high school for a short period of time, and that wasn't so much because of spreads as it was the whole dilemma of what happens when in a high school you can be sent home quarantined because you were close to somebody who was sick, and that was a large number of students, and we let winter break allow those kids to go home, come back, and we had enough time to sort of eradicate the problem. But we have not had an issue in our schools. The numbers are very low. So I feel like there's the issue of how we in this district deal with our problems has to be honored as well, because our families have come together. Some of them haven't liked the rules they followed, but we've kept kids safe as a community working together. I don't understand exactly why we can't pursue that path without mandating a vaccine, especially for young children. That's really hard for me. And I think everyone in this room, whether you believe in it or not, need to ask yourself, if I was sitting at this table, would I want to tell some young mother or father of a second grader, it doesn't matter how you feel, if you want your child to have a public education in Los Alamitos, you need to go get the shot. My heart has a problem with that. And so I don't know if I'm right. I want people to send me more information. I know there's research on both sides. I don't think there's enough substance to it. When people talk about other vaccines being mandated, that was 2015. I was in second grade when I got the sugar cube for polio. Children were in iron lungs, and second grade to 2015, I can tell you there's a lot of decades between my second grade and 2015. There was a lot of time to understand outcomes and whether or not there would be side effects or long-term damage. I am deeply concerned. I'm not so concerned about a secondary level. That's just me. I'm only speaking for myself because those kids are out in the world. They're in classrooms, they move through classes, and they're in contact with a lot of different students all the time. During the height of the pandemic, and we were in hybrid, I went past Rossmore Park accidentally a few times when Group A had left the high school. We're now going home, and Group B was on its way, and the kids were in clusters sitting on the ground talking close to each other with masks off. So high school kids live their own lives no matter what we parents think. So I'm not so concerned about more adult bodies getting the vaccination. That's probably a whole other argument. I am deeply concerned about telling someone what to do with their 5-year-old. I'm fully vaccinated. I have the booster. My grandson, who's 5, is having his second shot today. Had a second shot today. He had no problems with the first shot. It's not my call. My son and his wife decided that. I honor their decision. So what I think is that we have to consider what the state is ordering us to do in terms of parental rights on both sides. Parental rights for the kids whose parents are fearful of getting COVID from an unvaccinated person, and the unvaccinated child's rights, the parent rights in that situation. There are no easy answers. I'm also concerned that we cannot issue a mandate that kicks students out of school without any viable plan. And once we do, there will be families leaving. I don't disagree with that. And that's going to upend public education in many ways as well. And it'll upend the classrooms in our district whenever it happens. And our obligation is to provide quality education for all students. And if public education continues to take hits, that's going to be a challenge. So I have questions. I am not ready to make a decision. I am wanting to hear more, learn more, and I really, honestly, I'm going on feelings. I would really appreciate data, statistics, studies. Your feelings and my feelings come from our hearts, but they could be very real and very different. We need evidence, and we need logical responses, and I hope over the course of this next month, I hope we can delay this, and over the course of the next month, we can learn a whole lot more. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Davidson. Mr. Forehand.
Yes, I think one thing I wanted to start with was the beauty of putting it on the agenda was the discussion then that we could have as a group. And you have to remember, we can't meet separately and talk about something unless it's on the agenda. And everything that I'm hearing now gives me great hope that between all of us, we're going to make the right decision. But it's imperative to me that time is provided for that input. And be it statistics, be it you email, be you write letters to us, that's what we need to hear. We need to hear from the community, because I'll be honest, what I'm hearing is very different from, I get both sides being presented at me, and it's going to be a balance between that. Critical to me is that we provide appropriate education for all. We can't let the kids that supposedly aren't vaccinated be off campus when we don't have the resources to provide that. I agree totally. I'm in a dilemma. What age is appropriate? And I will say, I think it's, my heart feels, I'm like Meg, I'm like Diana, or Marla said, our hearts are into this, and it's very difficult for me to say to a 5-year-old parent, you got to get a vaccination. That's their choice. That's what they have to do. And I need to hear more. I need to learn more. I need to make a good decision based on facts and what's best for our community and our children. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Forehand. A couple things I've heard. One thing I do believe that I've heard is that we do have now put this out there, and we would like more input from parents. And so whether it's not going to be, if we take it up again at the next meeting, I don't believe it's that time sensitive. I believe that we are moving to the right place, and to get and to make the right decision and be able to hear from parents is important. I've heard personally from a lot of parents. And so what I'll say is these are some of the questions I've heard from parents. I've heard, my child already had COVID, so they have the antibodies. And so will that allow me an exemption? Now you're going to ask my child to get vaccinated and they already have the antibodies. Is there any research that's been done on what can happen for a child regarding that? I think that's a really important question. You know, I've also heard from parents that we don't know what the long-term effects will be for a child. And I'll tell you a personal story. I went to a fundraiser, and I was talking to Meg about this, for pediatric cancer. And a doctor got up and started talking about why it was so important to do research for treatment for pediatric cancer. Because you can't simply take the treatments that you give to an adult and make the dose a half or a quarter of a dose. It doesn't work. Their bodies are different. Their bodies are constantly developing and growing. And so we need time to be able to do that. Other things that I've heard is that, you know, we mandate that polio, they must have the polio vaccine. Well, my mother had polio. I know a lot about what happened with polio. My mother had polio. She fully recovered. But that polio attacked children. COVID is not attacking children. 30% of children died from polio. If we were having this argument right now because that's what was happening with COVID, there would be no discussion. Right? And so, you know, some of the other things I've heard from parents is, I don't want my children in a room with, I don't want my children in a classroom with unvaccinated children. And I ask, have your children been in school this year? Did they go to hybrid? And they've said yes. And I'm like, oh, okay, so explain to me why this line has been drawn now and how that's going to change. So I really think that by having those questions, and I wish that I wish you could raise your hand and I could call on you, but unfortunately, a board meeting doesn't work that way. But you can come back at next meeting, or parents can send us emails. We can continue to do research before our next meeting and make a decision on how we as a board move forward from the perspective of what do we say to our legislative representatives. Because that's really where the I'm going to mess up this saying, the metal meets the road. No, is that wrong? Something. Rubber meets the road. That's right. Yes, if you were driving on metal, that wouldn't be too good. Okay. So where the rubber meets the road is because if that is mandated by the state, it's mandated by the state. And so this is an opportunity we have to be able to have our voices heard and to be able to have our voices heard as a collective. And so I think that at this point in time, from what I've heard from the other board members, they want more input. They want this period of time. They're very, you could hear from both, you could hear from all of us that this is a really important issue, and that we, I think, are really looking at what action we can and should take. And I want to thank Dr. Pulver for the way that this resolution was put forward, because it really puts the most important things in that resolution. Our kids need to be in school. Do you know that over 1 million children didn't even register for school last year? They got lost in this country. They just disappeared. And the last thing I want is for more children to be disappearing from our schools. They need to be in their schools. And what some of you may not realize is that they're in school not just for education. Some are because it's the only place they get meals. Some places, it's the only place that they get medical attention. All of those things are really, really important. And so whatever we can do to keep them in our schools is really important. And we want to be able to continue to do that. So, thank you for putting this, and thank you for really, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry,
We're supposed to be having a discussion, that's the way it
in the
works.
research that I have been doing, once you have COVID, you have the antibodies for approximately 3 months.
Okay, thank you, Matt.
Just giving out information.
Okay. And thank you, Meg. I appreciate that. I did want to say that I did find a survey that was done by the Kaiser Family Foundation, and it said that there were 22% of parents that definitely would not vaccinate their 12 to 17-year-olds. They weren't even talking about 5-year-olds. So I know this is a really big issue with our families and our parents. Yes, Mrs. Davidson.
The question was raised of whether or not we've talked with people or met with people. A number of people have contacted us, and from both perspectives, I've had a pediatrician, a cardiologist. I've had doctors call. I know the other board members have too. We're hearing strong information on both sides, which always makes everything difficult. That's why, and some people automatically assumed that we would be following the mandate. So when we put the resolution into the agenda on Friday, I started getting more emails and contacts about protecting with the vaccination mandate. So there's different sides, and that's why we're asking for everyone to engage as you're engaged.
Right now we would have to vote on a resolution. And so unless I hear anything about the changes in the resolution itself, I think we've had a really robust discussion, and we are asking to hear from the public more, and then we would bring that back. Dr.
So I think,
Culver?
Madam President, part of the way that the resolution was written, as you can see, there's no date nor the year in terms of approved and adopted, because one of the things I really appreciate about all of you is you want to make sure you hear from your community, that people don't feel as though surprised. Some here in the room acknowledged, wow, I didn't know that was going to be on the agenda, even though at the last board meeting you had requested it to be a discussionary item on the agenda. And I know that was mentioned in some of the news articles the past few weeks. But I do appreciate that this board wants to work through this thoughtfully, give opportunities for different voices to be heard. And so I know initially some of the feedback I was given was to take a look at something, perhaps spread it out over 2 board meetings before the board takes a vote on it. That'll still be up to you whether you vote on it at our next board meeting, which is Tuesday, January, I think that's the 11th. So to give the community, particularly around the holidays, more time to let them share how they feel. Just want to be clear, we're not the public health experts. So some of those questions that you're talking about, the research, may be out of your hands. I think the decision in this case really is within what's alluded to here. There might be other, as you reflect on this further, if there's additional language you want considered, that you can bring that forward and make those recommendations the next time the board takes up this discussion. I want to just clarify as well, sometimes people keep saying the resolution's talking about our legislature. If you look at item number 3, it really says elected officials. Our governor is an elected official. Our state legislature and assembly are elected officials, et cetera. So it's more encompassing than I think some people are alluding to. So I just want to bring that up. But I do appreciate all of you wanting to make sure you're not surprising people, that you're taking time thoughtfully to really listen to the voices within the community, which you represent, as well as the students. And particularly kind of the notion that I wrote down was if this was to kick students out, what other viable plan is present? And I haven't seen the legislature or the governor really mention anything along those lines. Currently, I know of 2 districts in Orange County who have attempted to take a look at a resolution quite different from the one that you are looking at this evening. I don't know of any others. LA Unified has said they still will be enforcing their mandate. They're just extending it through next year. So there's a myriad of different ways. There are other districts who have taken a look at it in different things. But I do know what's clear in here as well, where you're recognizing we really will continue to follow the guidance by our public health experts.
So are you saying by next board meeting you guys will vote?
Not by next board meeting. At the next board meeting, it will come back to the board, correct, Dr. Pulver?
So that would be the will of the board, but I would imagine the board would probably want to, if you want to discuss it further, you could keep similar language, discussion and consideration if you want to vote at that board meeting. Either if you don't vote tonight, then obviously you're going to further the discussion at the next board meeting. So that would be maybe something for you guys to decide. Do you want to vote tonight? Do you want to wait and take a look at it at the next board meeting? I think that would be a good discussion for you to have.
Mr. Fayette?
Go to the next board meeting, leave the language in place, just because it's the holidays, everyone gets super busy. That January may be too quick, you know, like you may not really have enough time to really talk to you, because everyone gets super busy. I know I'm busy during the holidays. You have to keep the same language in there, we revisit if we have enough time to meet with people, because we have an extended timeline. This isn't happening right away. Then we have at least until next August before this happens. And legislature doesn't even return to session till the middle of January. So we have time. So I would, like I said, I've been accused of not listening to the public. I've been accused of not taking the time, doing things in the dark at night. This was our compromise that we could hear from everyone, not just the 7 people who got to speak tonight or the few people that have emailed. So that's what I would like to see us table it for, and keep the same thing for the next board meeting, and we'll revisit it then.
Mr. Forham agrees, and okay, yes. So we would like to table it. We'll bring it back with the same language to our January 11th meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pulver. Do you want 5 minutes? Sure. We will take a 5-minute recess.
Take it away, Madam President.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to another action item, which is the adoption of Resolution 2021-2022-08, maintaining current trustee boundary areas. Dr. Pulver.
Thank you, Madam President, esteemed members of the board. As you know, we are already went through our trustee areas and created our trustee area maps. However, we knew when we entered that into that process a couple years ago, we need to revisit it when the data from the 2020 census is reported. We had a board workshop from legal counsel on September 28th, 2021, just reminded us what this process would be, to take a look at once the census data has been presented. As a district, we retained the services of a professional demographer to review the trustee areas and take a look at the census data. Obviously, that's not our expertise. And that's also been reviewed by our legal counsel, and they have determined that the current trustee area boundary maps still meet all the legal requirements when you pass it prior. Therefore, you do not need to develop further maps if you did not want to. And so what this resolution is saying is that it is recommended that the board adopt the resolution to maintain the current trustee areas. As you know, we still have 2 trustee areas that haven't even been implemented yet. And so this would retain the trustee area boundaries for the next 10 years.
Thank you, Dr. Pulver. And so do we have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Discussion. Yes, Mrs. Catulli.
I'm just really glad that we do not have to change our trustee areas because of the fact that we've only done it through not even one entire election cycle for the 5 members of the board. It was confusing enough the last time going to trustee areas. So I'm glad that we'll be able to get real comfortable with our trustee areas before someone else will have to look at the data and decide if they have to make any changes. So I'm very happy we can do this.
Any other discussion? Mrs. D'Angelo, is it a roll call vote?
That is correct. Mr. Fayette.
Aye.
Ms. Catulli.
Aye.
Mrs. Davidson.
Aye.
Mrs. Hill.
Aye.
Mr. Forehand.
Okay, we are moving on to the approval of the first reading of an updated board policy 6154 homework. Mrs. Reed.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Hill. Tonight we're bringing forth a first reading of a revised board policy 6154. The makeup work section of this board policy has been updated to be compliant with Ed Code, and it's changed regarding work missed during a suspension or work affected by student absences.
Thank you. And this is a first reading, so there's no action to be taken? We approve the first reading. So can I get a motion?
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you. Now we will move on to the presentation and approval of the 2021-2022 first interim budget report. So excited. Thank you.
Well, good evening, esteemed board members, President Hill, Executive Cabinet, and distinguished guests. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm honored to come today and present our first interim report and budget updates for the 21-22 fiscal year. And first and foremost, I would like to thank Myra for her hard work, and she really did put this book together and everything in it. So thank you, Myra. So this is our first official revision to our adopted budget. So basically what we do is we take the adopted budget in July, then we come for first interim and present, and we look at our actual revenues and expenditures that we've received from July 1st all the way up to October 31st of 2021. Then we revise our budget and we project out for the next, for the remainder of the year. We have to, as a district, make sure that our financial conditions are well within the next 2 periods within the year. So we take the first interim and then we look at the second interim. Then we project out to and look at our multi-year projections. So we have to ensure that we are fiscally solvent and addressing any financial conditions that we may have. We look at our budget assumptions. We compare our adopted budget from July 1st and we compare our first interim as of December 21st. So when we look at our cost of living adjustment, our COLA stayed the same for this year. We look at STRS and PERS, stayed the same. We look at our health and welfare benefit contribution per employee, it stayed the same. Our state unemployment insurance, we did talk about this in unaudited actuals where we indicated that the governor did reduce the SUI rate from 1.23 to 0.5. That was a very well welcome news. We also, our enrollment projections at adopted was anticipated to be 9,167. Right now, when we look at our CalPADs, we are at 9,132, which is 185 students less than our estimated at adopted budget. We were anticipating 150, so we've gone down an additional 35 students. Then we look at our estimated P2 ADA. We came down about 5 ADA, and that is primarily our NPS student population went down. Our estimated funded ADA also went down slightly because of those NPSs. And then we look at our estimated LCFF entitlement per ADA. At adopted, we were anticipating 9,485 per student. And now for first interim, we're anticipating a 9,477. So a small reduction, about $6 per ADA. Then we look at our multi-year assumptions. So we have our 21-22 assumptions, which is the same that I've just talked about. Then we look at 22-23 and 23-24. As you see, cost of living adjustment, our COLA has not changed from adopted budget. It's still the same, 5.07 and 2.48% for 22-23 and 3.11 for 23-24. Our STRS and PERS are expected to increase in the 22-23. That's going to be a huge impact in our budget. It's 2.18% for 22-23 for STRS and an increase of 3.19% for PERS in 22-23. Overall, that's for STRS, it's about a $1.1 million increase. And for PERS, it's about $1.6 million. That's going to be a huge hit. I'm hearing and I'm hopeful that that there is enough advocacy out there for an additional relief in the state budget to help with the pension increases that every district in California is experiencing right now. That is really high. When we look at our enrollment projections, as you can see, currently we are at 9,132. We're expected to continue to decline. Our enrollment projections are 8,997 and 8,838 in 22-23. Our estimated P2, it's about 97% of our enrollment. We normally assume that our ADA is going to be about 97. That's our average daily attendance. Even though we're right now assuming that 97%, with COVID, that number may drastically change in the outward year. So we're keeping an eye on that enrollment projections. And then keep in mind our estimated LCFF funding is based on the current year or the prior year. And for 21-22, we still have that saving grace, I guess, when it comes to projecting funded ADA, because we're still using last year's ADA. Even though we don't have a hold harmless anymore, we still can use the higher of prior year or current year. So that's the saving grace we have, but in 22-23, that's where we're going to see a huge decline in our funded ADA.
Mrs. Galicia, can
Yes.
we just go back to that slide? The enrollment projections for the next 2 years, does that factor in some of the transitional kindergarten?
Oh, I'm so sorry. You're absolutely not. No, it does not factor. The anticipated implementation of the universal TK program. We're hopeful that the rollout of the universal pre-K program will help with that enrollment projections in the next few years. So in 22-23, we anticipate accounting for those students. But at this point, we're not counting them right now, but they will. Okay? All righty. So now we move on to what I wanted to, in this particular slide, I wanted to explain a little bit of our LCFF funding. As you know, our LCFF funding is based on base, supplemental, base and supplemental. So the base funding is based on ADA. So when we calculate our LCFF funding, a portion of our LCFF funding is based on ADA, and another portion is based on supplemental. So when there's a reduction in our ADA, there's going to be a reduction in our base funding. When there is a reduction in our UPP, which is our unduplicated pupil percentage, which is composed of a free and reduced population, our foster youth, our homeless, and our EL students. So when there's a reduction in those students, there's a reduction in our percentage in unduplicated pupil count. We are anticipating a reduction in that UPP in the next 3 years, primarily because there really isn't an incentive right now for parents to fill out the free and reduced application because we are a universal feeding, so there isn't an incentive. We have sent out multiple emails to our parents and our families to continue to fill out that application because it does help increase our supplemental funding. So as you can see for 21-22, we did have overall between our base and our supplemental a decrease of $132,000. And that's in addition to any reduction that I might have anticipated at adopted budget. And then in 22-23, we are anticipating between both of them, supplemental and base, $546,000 reduction. And then for 23-24, an additional $639,000 reduction. Keep in mind, these are all estimates based on assumptions we currently have at this particular moment. So in this graph, I wanted to just show you in a linear format our enrollment, our P2 ADA, and our funded ADA. Normally, our enrollment would normally be higher than our funded ADA and our actual P2. But as you can see in 2021, you see the actual P2 and our funded P2 interact because they're the exact same because of the hold harmless provision. In 21-22, our funded ADA still stayed the same as prior year because we're using the same number as last year, even though, as you can see in the red line, which is our CBEDS enrollment, we've drastically declined. And our funded ADA, and our P2 ADA, which is the blue line, it's even further down. So that's where we're gonna see the decline in the 22-23. Now we go back to the way we were, where our enrollment is higher, our funded ADA is underneath it, and then right under that is our actual P2. We're hoping, and there has been a lot of discussion in CBO meetings and CSBA, we heard it quite a bit, where there's a lot of advocacy out there where we're hopeful that maybe the governor will give us, they change the LCFF calculation where it's not based on ADA, but based on enrollment. So there has been a lot of discussion out there where there's gotta be something where districts are really gonna suffer in the 22-23 year and going forward in the decline of enrollment.
So as some of you, all of you have been advocating as with CSBA and school services and different things, what I love, this graph that Elvia and Myra have created, is it really illustrates this concept where you've heard the cliff. We're all gonna see the cliff next year. So if you look at that green line between the 21-22 and the 22-23, that shows you that that's the cliff where we're going to suddenly see a dramatic decline in funding unless the state really takes some different actions, which certainly there's a lot of advocacy for. So it's I think that graph does a great job to illustrate what that cliff looks like.
Thank you.
No, but I think it's understand it more in that light.
Exactly. And once we plug in all of our assumptions into our into our budget. We then started adjusting our adopted budget into our first interim. And overall, we did experience an increase in revenues about $492,000. The bulk of that increase in revenue was the $600,000 that we're estimating in special ed state funding. We did talk about this when I brought forward our unaudited actuals, where we said we did anticipate an increase in special ed funding. And we did have an increase in expenditures of $1.1 million, and that is primarily, we adjusted our total staffing allocations. We also included our CSCA negotiated items, and then SUI rate, the decrease in SUI rate. So we had an increase in salaries, and then we had a decrease in fringe benefits, which is the SUI rate. And then we also started allocating all of the sites' discretionary allocation, and we had an increase in LCAP supplemental carryover money from last year that we allocated. So overall, it was a net effect in unrestricted general fund of $660,000. It was a reduction to our fund balance. Then in the restricted side, and the reason why I separated unrestricted with restricted, primarily because I wanted to separate the one-time funds that we received for COVID-related items, and because those are restricted, we have to account for them on the restricted side of the general fund. We did carry over last year, in 2021, we did carry about $5 million in unspent revenues that we received for ESSER, expanded learning opportunity, in-person instruction grant, and that's where we're accounting for those revenues and expenditures at this particular moment. So that's why you see a net change in restricted ending fund balance of $3,175,000. And so on our multi-year projection in the unrestricted general fund, this is where we look at the two subsequent years, the current year and the subsequent 2 years, and kind of plug in all of our revenue, plug in all of our expenditures, and then look at our ending fund balance and where do we anticipate being. After we take into consideration the COLAs, we take into consideration the increases in STIRS and PERS, and everything that we know as of this moment. So for 21-22, we anticipate an 8.01% reserve balance, and then with Fund 17, a 12.41. When we look at 23-24, we are now down to a 6.71% and 11.79. This multi-year projection does not include the LAEA and admin negotiated salary agreement, which I believe the board will take action after this presentation. But I wanted to show you once we plug in those costs of salary negotiations, what effect is it going to have in our multi-year projection? And that's what, oops, I went a little too fast. Sorry about that. So this is our multi-year projection after we plug in the salary negotiated agreements for all of our employees. And so if you take a look at our fund balance for 21-22 is now 6.69, and in the third year out in 23-24, it's 3.04%. What we have heard in a lot of our CBO meetings is that we hope that the 22-23 governor's budget will have, what we've heard is that the state's revenue projections are higher than what we're anticipating. So COLA seems to be, even though we're projecting a 2.48, it might be even a 3, even a 5%. I've heard various 3s, 3.5%, 5%. We're hopeful higher, but we won't know that until January. But we're not taking any of those projections now, but we're hopeful that that will help. So we are hearing that those state revenues are looking much better than they anticipated.
So what COLA do we have plugged in? I'm sorry.
The 2.48 for 22-23, the
Yes.
2.48%.
Okay, great. And then also, so our reserve for economic uncertainties is going down. That's because we're deficit spending, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Next slide is our COVID relief funds. And basically, I just wanted to point out what we've received in COVID relief funds. And if the board would like to have a more specific workshop later on, so we can dive into more specific as to how we spent these money. So we have the in-person instruction grant, which is, the bulk of these funds are for ventilation, COVID testing, monitoring PPE, salaries, and social emotional learning support, actually. So we've pretty much spent all those funds. We've encumbered, we've committed. The 2% off schedule that we've offered to all employees is coming out of this particular grant, the in-person, because it does allow for salary expenditures. The deadline for that is 8/31 of 2022. We've also received the Expanded Learning Opportunity Grant. Our balance right now is $4.2 million, and the deadline to expend those funds is 9/30 of 2024. And the bulk of those funds is primarily for learning recovery programs and supplemental instruction. Then we have the ESSER 2 and the ESSER 3, which have a little bit more of flexibility. We could use that for all aspects of learning recovery. We could use that for PPE, for COVID-related items. And those are, one of them is due on 9/30 of 23, and the other one is 9/30 of 2024. We have heard from many districts, even ourselves, we are having a bit of a hard time expending some of these monies that are primarily targeted towards paraprofessionals. We are having a hard time hiring paraprofessionals. So we're hopeful that those dates could be extended so we won't have to give the funds back, because if we don't spend them, they are tied to plans. So a lot of these COVID funds are tied to plans, and I'm not sure if you guys have heard that it's become more of a pandemic than anything else, because every one-time funds we received is tied to a plan, and we have to stick to those particular ways we were spending the funds. Yes, Ms. Davidson.
Elvia, so can these funds, when you talked about learning recovery, can they also be used for staff development? Do we have to connect it to COVID? Like, could we use it for, or are we using it for Howard Group or any of that?
Yes, we are. We are, because those are social, emotional, mental wellness. So yes, we are using primarily the Expanded Learning Opportunity Grant.
Thank you.
But I think what I hear you saying is that although we have a need and we have the money, the time with which we need to spend that money, we maybe can't find the services, or they don't match directly to the plan. So we're not being able to expend that money within that period of time. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You might recall, as part of the budget last year, in some of these one-time funds, various groups advocate. One of the classified employee group really advocated that a portion of the, I think it was the in-person instruction funds, be used for paraprofessionals. And so that's the earliest timeline. By August of 2022, we have flown two different types of positions, some math and science instructional aides, some PE instructional aides to help at the elementary, and math and science to help at the secondary level. And it's very difficult to get people to apply for those positions. So we're hearing everyone in the states experiencing this. So I would imagine they want, for us, it's a little over almost 600,000, 500 and something that has to be spent on new IA positions, paraprofessionals. So I would anticipate the state realizes the hiring difficulties across the state and will probably relieve some extended timelines. But that will continue upon our advocacy. So I know all of you reach out to your elected officials, and that certainly would be one.
So, but I would, I guess it's a question and an assumption. I would assume that these are short-term positions. So a year, 2 years, whatever we have the funds for. So I would think that there would be people that would, being that we're in a position of such a shortage of teachers and so on and so forth. I mean, I know they're not teachers, but they're looking for a longer term position. Why would they apply for a short term position?
Well, even for some of our long-term positions, I think everyone's having a hard time finding. So we haven't advertised it necessarily as a short-term position.
Okay.
Although we have advertised that this is supplemental dollars in the
Right.
job posting. As you know, the new law also takes effect if you do any classified layoff, you have to do so on or before March 15th. So that will complicate the matters moving forward. Needless to say, and they can only be spent on that type of an individual. We couldn't contract with an outside agency or intervention teachers because an intervention teacher is not a paraprofessional. So
Thank you.
there are certain strings with some of these dollars.
That's correct. Thank you, Dr. Polder. So what are our next steps? December 2021, we are presenting our first interim, which we've accounted for all of our carryover funds. We've allocated all of our staffing increases or decreases, and we've accounted for all negotiated and settled salary agreements. So in January of 22, we are looking forward to our governor's state budget proposal, where we, like I said, we're looking forward to it because we anticipate having a little bit more of COLA, hopefully. And then in February of 2022, we will bring forward the LCAP mid-year one-time supplement to annual update, where we basically what this supplement is accounting for all the carryover funds that we didn't spend. We have to account for it and show it in our budget overview for parents. And then in March of 2022, we will bring forward our 21-22 second interim report and budget updates, where we will be incorporating any of the governor's state budget proposals and changes to our multi-year projection. And with that, based on the most current information and assumptions that we have, we would like to ask the board to approve our first interim report certification with a positive certification. So if there are any questions, I would be more than happy to answer. Yes, Ms. Catulli.
This really isn't a question. I just wanted to make a comment that from talking with different legislators and CSBA and different school board members across the state, is that what has been a pretty unified effort, and I think ACTS has been in this too, so that if there is more money in the state, the budget is higher than they thought it was going to be. But where are they going to allocate it? And there has already been quite a lot of lobbying saying, please put it either against the base or pay down STRS and PERS.
Exactly.
So I have hope that one of those two things, if not both of them, will be looked at by the legislature or the governor, in which case would really help, because 3%, which is your minimum, makes me nervous. And I know it's 2 years out and we don't know what's going to be happening. So it's a excellent guesswork. But I feel pretty confident that the state will do something in those areas, just from the people I've been talking with.
Yeah, I did get an email today where the governor's proposal does include additional Prop 98 money, but additional one-time monies. And I'm like, we don't want any one-time monies. We'd rather let more ongoing money would be so much better.
Yeah, and there is also a big discussion too about how we don't want one-time money. We don't want categoricals. We switched to LCFF. We're even at the point where we're just saying fund the base. We don't. I mean, even the schools that get a lot of supplemental money are saying fund the base. It's more fair for the entire state.
Right. And I believe Andrea and Melissa would agree that we don't want to do another plan.
Yeah, oh, that too, yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. So do I hear a motion?
Second.
No roll call. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Passes 5-0. We're going to move on to the approval of the public disclosure settlement statement and tentative agreement between Los Alamitos Unified School District and Los Alamitos Education Association, LAEA, for 2020-21 and 2021-22 school years. Dr. Frazier.
Thank you, Madam President.
I can't see you between.
As I say.
Hi.
We can't see it.
This is the approval of AB 1200, which requires the district to prepare and submit public disclosure of the financial impact of collective bargaining agreements, as well as the actual approval of the tentative agreement between Los Alamitos Unified School District and LAEA for the 2021 and 22 school years. I just want to say Stacy Schmitz, our LAEA president, is here. She's weathered the storm, and we really appreciate her and all the work that she does with her membership to continue to collaborate together to make these things happen. So thank you, Stacy.
Do I have a motion?
Second?
Any discussion?
I would just like to say thank you to Dr. Frazier and thank you to Stacy and your incredible teams. It's such a hard time right now, and I can't even imagine what it's been like for all of you. But Stacy, you're a tremendous leader, and the teachers are very blessed and fortunate to have you in that role. And Dr. Frazier, you have had so many balls to juggle and, and to keep up with, and you've done a fabulous job, so thank you both.
Mrs. Cattouli?
I just want to say that as a board member, being able to approve contracts or agreements between our bargaining units and the school is actually one of my favorite things to do, because to me, it means like we all have our hands in the middle and we're all going forward and we're all here for the kids. So I do appreciate the work on both teams have put into it. And it's been so challenging with just what everybody's been experiencing with COVID and all that kind of stuff. And I'm glad that we have it here, and I'm going to be very happy to vote yes.
Any other discussion? Well, then I'll put it forward to a vote.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 0. Passes 5-0. Merry Christmas. Approval of AB 1200, public disclosure of salary settlement and salary settlement adjustments for the California School Employees Association, CSEA, Chapter 324. And this is also for years 2020, 2021, and 2022. And Dr. Frazier.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, this is also the requirement for the AB 1200 for the district to prepare and submit public disclosure of financial impact of collective bargaining agreements. This is also an adjustment for our CSEA unit. If you remember before, we previously approved the tentative agreement with our district and CSEA and Chapter 324 for that granted the classified unit members the same salary increase should LAEA negotiate a different percentage or allocation. And so this is bringing that forward so they could, for your consideration, for them to receive the same compensation. And I do want to take a moment to thank Mitch Bonales. He's not here tonight, but he does a great job with their team as well, and with his membership and really that partnership of working together through our IBB process. So thank you, Mitch.
Thank you, Dr. Frazier. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Second? Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Now we're going to do consideration approval of salary settlement for confidential supervisory and FMOT management and supervisors for, once again, 2020, 2021 and 2021, 2022 school years. Dr. Frazier, we're just playing ping pong here.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, this is the adjustment for our confidential and supervisory positions under the classified. Again, just to, as we settled with LAEA, that we would consider adjusting their schedules equivalent to the salary compensation of LAEA.
Do I have a motion?
So, second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Now we are moving on to consideration of approval of salary schedules for counselors and psychologists and administrators guess what? For the same years, 2020, 2021, and 2021, 2022. And Dr. Frazier, can you speak to this, and then just also speak to what we typically do in our culture in the sense of the balance with all of these increases? Does that make sense? I know I'm really tired.
It's okay.
You understand what I mean? How everybody.
Right. I think we strive to make sure that all of our employees get the equal or equivalent compensation when we go through our negotiation process. So this one is bringing forward the consideration for our counselors and psychologists, who, by the way, have just done an amazing job over the last couple of years with all of the mental health and social emotional issues that we're faced with on our campuses. So I do want to give them a shout out, and they've done such a tremendous job. But it is requesting the board to recognize the contributions of our non-represented employees by considering an increase to the salary schedules equivalent to the percentage increase negotiated with our employees' bargaining units.
Excellent explanation. Thank you very much. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Now let's move on to approval of a rate increase for substitute positions in a classified or certificated service. Dr. Frazier.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, this is we are bringing forward the consideration for approval for our salary schedules for our classified substitute and certificated service employees. We've really found, and like we've talked about before, really the labor shortage nationwide has really given us an opportunity to recalibrate our pay structure for some of our substitutes to make sure that we can retain and also recruit quality employees for our kids and our staff here in our school district.
Thank you, Dr. Frazier. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? I do want to make a comment that that is something that I do believe that we have really heard also from our teaching staff, is that we do need qualified substitutes so that they can do things like professional development, so they can take their PTO days, so that they can do things to help support their wellness as well as their professional development. So I really appreciate this being brought forward. I believe we have a first and a second. Any further discussion?
I just thought I would add that this is for all of our different substitute areas. The minimum wage is increasing January 1 to $15, so we had to reflect that as well and squeeze that out. But we have shortages for trying to hire people within food services. You know, of every fast food industry that's trying to hire, whether it be clerical substitutes, LVN substitutes. So it's really across the board, really trying to find how we can help support the ongoing needs to what it takes to operate a school and a district during these times.
Thank you, Dr. Pulver. We've had a first, we've had a second, we've had plenty of discussion. So all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. We are now going to move on to the approval of the 2022, 2023, and 2023, 2024 school calendars. Dr. Frazier.
Thank you, President Hill. This is bringing forward the approval of the calendars. This is part of the process when we negotiate as well, is to make sure that we pass calendars. Our goal is always to have those couple years out so that we can inform our community about important dates, as well as our staff, so they can plan vacations and kind of know what's to come in the coming years. So these are the approvals for the 22, 23, and 23, 24 school calendars.
Do you have a motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Consideration and approval of addendum to Assistant Superintendent of Business Services contract for employment. And I am now going to ping pong the ball over to Mr. Forham.
Yes, and as I understand it, I'm reporting out statement, so reads, board statement before approving agenda. Oops.
My mistake. I do want to say that it is for item K through N. So it was business services contract employment. Am I correct, Mrs. D'Angelo? Yep. For human resources
contract, educational services contract of employment, and superintendent contract of employment of services. So it is for all 4 of those items. Thank you.
I'm just glad I don't have to read it 4 times.
That's what I was really excited about.
I think everybody else is glad too.
Recently, the district concluded the 2020-21 and 21-22 salary negotiations with the classified and certificated bargaining units. As we have done from time to time in prior years, the board approved the same salary increases to the current confidential, supervisory, and administrative salary schedules. As required by the Brown Act, an oral report must be given prior to taking final action on the amendments to the employment contracts of the assistant superintendents, deputy superintendent, and the superintendent. The Brown Act requires that the oral report include a report on the salaries and fringe benefits that are provided by the amendments to the employment contracts. With respect to employee health benefits, the assistant superintendents, deputy superintendent, and superintendent will receive employee health benefits in the same manner as other district employees. With respect to salary, the assistant superintendents, deputy superintendent, and superintendent will receive salary increases in the same manner as we provided to all other bargaining unit members, confidential, supervisory, and management employees. The increase reflects a 2% one-time compensation based on the 2020-21 salary schedule for all management employees, a 2% salary increase to the 2021 salary schedule retroactive to July 1, 2020, and a 1% salary increase to the 21-22 salary schedule retroactive to July 1, 2021. The deputy superintendent, effective July 1, 2021, shall be placed on step 5 of the management salary schedule for deputy superintendent.
Thank you very much, Mr. Forehand. So do I call for a motion?
So move.
Second?
Any discussion? All well deserved. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Passes 5-0. Okay, approval of adoption of the Education Effectiveness Grant.
I'm sorry, Madam President.
What did I move?
The reporting statement applies to K through N, but you do need to take action separately. So you just took action on item K, which is the Assistant Superintendent
Okay.
Business Services, but we'll need to go through the same
Got it.
actual for the other.
So let's go to, do I have a motion for I?
L.
Second.
It's L.
L, sorry, L. Yes, that usually works that way in the alphabet. So we have a first, we have a second, no discussion?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Educational Services Contract of Employment.
Oh, so move approval. Second.
Any discussion? We'll take a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 0. Passes 5-0. That was M. And now we're on to N. Consideration and approval of addendum to the superintendent's contract of employment.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Are we in order now, Dr. Pulver? Thank you very much. Okay, now we will move on to the approval of the adoption of the Education Effectiveness Block Grant. Mrs. Reed.
Thank you so much, President Hill. Tonight, we're bringing forward for the final time the approval of the adoption of the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant. If you recall from previous meetings, Mrs. Davis, our Director of Assessment and Accountability, who's really worked hard and tirelessly in partnership with our business services offices to give a short workshop and presentation on this grant that's coming forward tonight for your final approval.
Do I have a motion?
So move.
A second? Discussion? I have a question. So this is an example of a plan, correct?
Yes, this is an example of one of the 4 plans that Melissa is currently working on in partnership with Myra and Elvia that outlines specifically where we're going to spend these different one-time funds in accordance with each of the strings attached to each of the areas that the 4 plans kind of allows us to spend money to support. This one is to support educator effectiveness. Some have been expanded learning opportunity. Some other examples are the ESSER plans that have come forward as well.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Any other discussion? We'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 0. Let's go spend some money. Okay, approval, I'm sorry, I'm a little giddy. Approval of a memorandum of understanding agreement 1000302 with the Orange County Department of Education for the Teacher Induction Program. Dr. Frazier.
Thank you, Madam President. This is the approval of the MOU for our OCDE teacher induction program. The induction program consortium provides quality professional development and support to candidates required by the Commission of Teaching Credentialing to clear their preliminary multiple and or single subject and or a special education credentials through an approved induction program.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I'll call for any discussion. Yes, Mrs.
Dr.
Gattuso.
Frazier, is this bid stuff? Okay,
Yes, it is.
that's what I thought. Just wanted to
Okay.
make sure.
Thank you, Mrs. Gattuso. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. We will now look at the approval of warrants. May I have a motion?
So moved.
59 pages, I do believe.
It was
Yes.
59.
Yes. So what happens with the approval of warrants? Warrants is basically the district's checkbook. And so we get a list of all of the checks and we get the opportunity to read all of them. And then we get to ask Mrs. Galicia, if we have any questions. And she gets us wonderful answers. And so then we go and approve them all at one time. So approval of the warrants, I had a second. I had a first, I had a second. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 0. Thank you. And now acceptance of donations. Our wonderful community is very, very generous to us. And so each meeting, we have the opportunity to see the different donations that partially come, the different donations that come in to the district. And this is certainly not all of the donations that we recognize in this district, but we're very grateful for all of them. And total for this period of time is $39,906.09, and year to date, $259,279.12. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So do I have a motion?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are now going to look at taking what I forget what number I'm on.
S.
Yes.
Oh,
Page
classified.
11.
S, T, and U together as one motion, and that would be the classified personnel report, the certificated personnel report, and the administrative certificated personnel report. May I have a motion?
So moved.
A second? And I forgot to ask Dr. Frazier, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I'll just be concise. It's as presented.
Thank you. I had a first, I had a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 0. We are now going to move on to the approval of an agreement for and stipulation for a full student expulsion waiver and hearing and appeal of rights, and that is Mr. Forham.
Yes, it is moved. Do we move it first?
You moving
Yeah,
it.
we move.
Reading that, you're moving it.
Oh, okay. It is moved that the agreement and stipulation to a full student expulsion waiver of hearing, and appeal rights for student A be approved for violation of the following ed codes: 48915A, 48900A1, and 48900A2.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second? Second. All those, any discussion? I don't think we can, never mind. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0, it's not a roll call. Now we will look at the organizational meeting continued for the Board of Education, and this would be the approval of the board representative assignments, which we discussed in our workshop. Do we feel comfortable with moving this forward now?
Yes.
So we had one change, if I do recall, and that was going to add Mr. Fayette to the PTA Council. Yep. And so I would ask for a motion that we approve the representative assignments with that one adjustment.
Also move.
Great.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. And with that, I believe we will conduct our meeting. Any necessary to go back into closed session? Okay. So we will wish everybody a wonderful Christmas and a fabulous New Year, and we look forward to 2022. I adjourn the meeting.